Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and I appreciate you tuning us in as we're going to talk some Sasquatch with one of my favorites. Thomas Sewid is here, and we're going to have a great time with him tonight for the next couple of hours as we get ready to start off roll call on our YouTube channel tonight. Who do we got? Let's see where this goes, shall we? Well, we got, oh, that's yesterday's. Hold on. Where did he put it today? Where did he put it today? I don't know. It's like disappeared. Okay, well, we're going to start here then. Kwakwaka'wakw in the gold medal position, race fan with a silver. Mel WD-40 bringing home the bronze medal tonight and lubing us up for tonight's show because you can't talk Sasquatch unless you're nice and lubed. So thank you, Mel. Make sure you give yourself a shot, okay? Just a little bit. Not a little dabble do you, as they say. Robert Lamoth, Bad Frankie B, how are you? Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Necessary Dialogue. Nikki Cook is here. Nikki Cook will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. T-Bone, my man, how are you? Necessary Dialogue. Thanks for coming on in. Eternity Eternal. Good to see you as we continue on with our roll call. There's Luscious Jules hanging on out. Little Cam on YouTube tonight. He literally deadlifted Sasquatch 77 times in 4.5 minutes. Deadlifting Sasquatch. It's about a 400-pound Sasquatch. 77 times, 4.5 minutes. You don't have to believe me, but it's true. I promise you. Mama Catherine, how are you? You deserve one of these. Mwah. Good to see you, my dear. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Thank you for your lovely message this morning. I always appreciate those so much. Continuing on with our roll call, Jaquetta, how are you? And who is next on our list? Well, it's Bill Sardellis, everyone. Bam Skyder, nice to have you here as we scroll on down on our roll call to say hello next to Lisa Smith. Audacious Amber, how are you? Al Garay over on Twitch, 2,700 push-ups in 8 minutes. His arms are jacked. His stomach core, absolutely jacked. He's ready for tonight. Walter Kochabinski, how are you? Ryan C. is here. Ryan C. will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to see you. The lovely, the talented Deanna Ann. How are you? Nice to have you here. All right, Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. East Coast Turnaround on X. Nice to see you. Fat Nuts, how you doing, buddy? Nice to have you here. Michael Gutierrez, thank you for coming on in as we scroll on down and say hello to Operation Shutdown. Nelson R., how are you? Joseph Richardson, how you doing tonight? Let's scroll it on down a little bit more because we say hi to John's house. How you doing? And let's see here. Gerard Gonzalez, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matthew Goodka. Paramarv, nice to see you, my friend. J. True Seeker and Rex, how you guys doing? Thank you for joining us tonight. And who is next? Well, let's See here, Kurt W75. Nice to have you. Remember, if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithms. And I'm going to turn around and get the radio side going. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're talking Bigfoot. Thomas Sewid is here from Sasquatch Island. We're going to have some fun with him, breaking it all down with some great stories, great entertainment about the big guy in the forest. Let's get ready to do this. We are on roll call on our YouTube side. We want to remind everybody the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check that on out. And if you could do me a favor, after the show, leave a comment on the YouTube side or even on the podcast side. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you like it. It really helps with our algorithms. And Tina Smith, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us. We are about 10 seconds away. So do me a favor, everybody. Get cozy. Get comfy. Because we're going to talk some Sasquatch. So throw those horns up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're getting into the forests of North America tonight from SasquatchIsland.com. Thomas Sewid is here for a little bit of Bigfoot talk. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. We're going to follow that up with the wizard, Josh Rutledge, who is back after being ill the last time he was supposed to be on. Yeah, he's off the DL. He will be here for the UFO report. I love this topic. I really do. I could talk Bigfoot, Sasquatch, wild man for hours. And I do. That's kind of the reason why I do this job. Because literally, when I came into this field, I was totally a UFO guy. I really was. It was all mainly UFOs. I loved everything to do with UFOs, alien contact, alien abductions, everything like that. But over time, I have to tell you, the love of Sasquatch has absolutely given me like a brand new drive to kind of have some fun, go out in the field and try and find these great hairy beasts. Now, our guest tonight, Thomas Sewid, is a very respected Indigenous researcher, storyteller, and Sasquatch investigator from Vancouver Island, widely known for his deep cultural knowledge and lived experiences connected to the land. As a member of I'm sorry, Thomas, I'm going to butcher your First Nation, and you know what? I'm not even going to say it because I don't want to be insultive, but he is of First Nations descent. Thomas approaches Sasquatch phenomena through an Indigenous lens, sharing traditional teachings, histories, and firsthand encounters that have been passed down for generations. And this is what I love about this guy. Thomas's perspective challenges modern assumptions, emphasizing that Sasquatch is not merely a mystery, but an acknowledgement part of Indigenous knowledge and worldview. SasquatchIsland.com is his website. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us again on Spaced Out Radio. And I'll be the first one to say, my man, it's been way too long. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. Inviting me on again.
Okay, you have to do me a favor. I did not want to butcher your First Nations. What is the correct pronunciation of the name?
So what I'm going to say to you, I want you to repeat it exactly what I say. Do the walk of the Kwakwaka'wakw. Say it.
Do the walk of the Kwakwaka'wakw.
Kwakwaka'wakw. Yep. Do the walk of the Kwakwaka'wakw.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now you
Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, Northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada.
Now you kind of spend most of your time in Washington State, another large area of Sasquatch sightings. You know, I mean, how much do you love doing this? How much do you enjoy doing this? You have literally dedicated your life to the Sasquatch.
I've dedicated my life to being a commercial fisherman throughout British Columbia and grizzly bear hunting guide for over 20 years on coastal British Columbia. And that's where I had encounters but being a commercial fisherman brought me out to those communities you can only access by boat or float plane. And, what you did was you interacted with the locals, and I always asked them, what do you call your Sasquatch? What do you know about them? And I'd hear all the stories from all the different tribes through coastal British Columbia. And that's what really intrigued me. And then when fishing started to collapse in the mid 1990s, I had to, do something else. Otherwise, I was going to be on a welfare line. So I went into the bush and started ecotourism operations, doing a narrative walk through about an hour long in my abandoned native village out in the mouth of Knights Inlet off northeastern Vancouver Island in my tribal Mamliach tribes territories. Very famous village, old houses, no windows, no doors, fallen down totem poles throughout the village, big house beams from when we lived in the big houses, big cedar beams, that three people got to put their arms around the log. That's how big those vertical posts were. So all these tourists would come in the daytime on dinghies and kayaks. And at 4:30 in the afternoon, I was all by myself. And, I learned that I had to be sleeping before it was dark. Otherwise, I'd be plugging my ears going, la, 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 I don't hear that.
Right.
And you'd hear the Sasquatches coming into the abandoned native village, knowing that I'm the only one there, going after the cherries in June and the salmon berries. And then later on in the summer, it would be the plums and the apples, late summer, and pears. And you'd hear the Sasquatches going through the trees for these fruit. And you'd hear them chattering and whooping and things like that. And, but like I said, I slept. I didn't want to be awake listening to them because there's no windows on my grandfather's old house or doors. And I was sleeping on the second floor in what would have been his living room. And, I remember one night hearing something walking towards the house, and it's walking through 6 to 8 feet high salmonberry, thimbleberry, blackberry bushes and fruit trees poking out. And, I made a trail through the front of the village, but he was coming from the timber line about 120 yards away, straight for the porch. And when he got to the porch with no windows and no door, but it has that Victorian type wood rails, but it was standing over there. I'm lying in bed and the heart's pounding, and you could hear it smelling me. And I'm just thinking, what the heck am I going to do if he decides to jump on that porch? And all of a sudden he just turned and walked away. And, that's when I started to learn there was nothing to fear with them. The majority of them, especially the clan that hung out in my abandoned native village, they'd, be around at night, daytime. I never went deep in the bush where they're sleeping because they're nocturnal. But living out in the bush, sometimes you'd have a low tide, middle of the night. You'd jump in your speedboat, slowly travel to the prime beach that you want to go to, and with lantern and what we call a clam gun. It's just a 4-tine pitchfork. You're digging away on your knees, getting shellfish, clams, and cockles and other type of clam that's favorite food of the Sasquatch. And you'd hear tree smack, tree break, maybe a tree shaking, and you knew what you had to do. Is you had to bend down and get those cockles that you dug and walk for the black wall of trees at the head of the beach and
Right.
throw those cockles into the forest as a gift to the Sasquatches so they don't throw rocks at you or sticks. And they'd leave you alone after that. And that's where I learned it's all about respect with Sasquatch.
I remember you telling me about, the respect for this creature. And I've tried to take a lot of what you've taught me in our previous conversations about what I do out in the forest here of the Caribou region of British Columbia. And I got to tell you, one of the most important lessons that you helped teach me was you don't have to chase them. They will come to you. If they want you to see them, they will show you. If you want them around, just sit there. Don't do anything. They're too curious to not take note of who you are, what you are doing. Why is this creature so curious, in your opinion?
Well, number one, they're amazed with fire. And like they'll we got a campfire going, they're gonna come and watch. And that's why you get so much interactions with people around campfires because they have laws, very strict laws. They have language, they have laws, very strict laws. And their laws are they're not allowed to have fire. So it's intriguing for them to come up when we got a campfire going. They don't get to see that too often because if they do see a fire, it's generally a forest fire and they already DD'd out of there long before they even get near the flames. They're not going to get burnt up. So with my camp on northeastern Vancouver Island, I built 5 cabins that look like native style big houses, but they're only 10 foot by 8 foot. They're glorified garden sheds with native designs of orcas on the front, made of red cedar, windows on each side, and we did sea kayaking with orca whales with my tour boat back in the early to mid 2000s. And, I left it alone for a few years. I went and did other things for work. And then we went back one time just to visit and we had a Sasquatch encounter. We didn't see it. And someone asked me about it. I said, they're always around here. I said, they're curious. I said, you notice when we came down here yesterday, I said, when I went to start the fire, after I put my gun in my sleeping bag away, and I always have my gun sitting at a big spruce tree about 5 foot in
Mhm.
diameter, right by the head of the beach, by my fire area. I put the gun there because you never break the pattern with Sasquatch. So as long as they see me coming down the trail, get to the tree and put my gun down, they know that guns are going to stay there the whole time I'm in camp. I won't shoot warning shots at them or anything. It's just there for protection. But if I do go for a walk with everyone up the abandoned logging roads, I'll take it. So you never break the pattern. But I told those guys, I said, you notice yesterday all I had to do was go to that pile that was about 3 feet high of all the broken, dry under spruce branches. Because under the spruce tree, the branches that are dead are, tinder dry. That's what you use for kindling if you don't have an axe to split red cedar. And they go, yeah, we noticed that there was 2 big piles of kindling. When did you pile that there? I go, I never piled it there. Sasquatches do when I leave. When I come back, whether it be a month or 3 months or 6 months or a year, when I come back to my camp, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 piles of dry spruce twigs. And I think it's their way of saying, oh, good, Tom's back. He's going to start us a fire. So that's why they're curious and they come up to us. And they want to, see what's up. You got to remember, they're just big, hairy humans, so all of a sudden they want to check out the male Sasquatch wants to check out the females and wants to hear them because then, especially if there's children around, Sasquatches are drawn to that chirping, twittering, laughing,
Oh, yeah.
crying of children. So that's why I see them coming up to us. They're not coming up like a bear to beg food or steal food. They'll steal some, but generally it's just curiosity. And that's what I use in my investigations. I'm from Vancouver Island. I'm going up there tomorrow, but I'm here on the Olympic Peninsula in Forks, Washington, the Twilight Town, of course. We got Bella and Jacob's truck and Charlie, the police car, our policeman's car. We got the No Vampires Treaty sign. We got Twilight Museum, but we are in the heart and soul of the highest concentration of Sasquatch sightings in Washington state. So much sightings are coming to me, and others we get off the internet and books. That Carrie Kilmurray, one of the Sasquatch Island members on Vancouver Island, she has maps she produces that are interactive. So when you go to sasquatchisland.com, scroll down the bottom of the website to the lower part of the page, and you'll see 3 links for 3 maps: the Vancouver Island My Sasquatch map, the lifetime of collecting reports from people and my encounters, and then the North American Western Canada one, and then the last one is the Olympic Peninsula. And I'm always giving her new entries to put on there. And when you open it up, you'll see a silhouette of a Sasquatch. Click it, it'll open up a balloon with all the information of a Sasquatch sighting. See a footprint, click that, all the information about tracks or trackways. And then the little bullhorn, vocalizations and what they heard, when they heard it, and what it sounded like sometimes with audio bites. But, you know, Olympic Peninsula, it's on like Donkey Kong here. It's crazy. Like me and my wife, I've been here going on 21 months as the manager of SasquatchLegend.com, the largest Sasquatch store and museum in North America. And 21 months I've been managing it, and we've been investigating. You know, we've bought thousands of dollars worth of electronic trail cameras, a $1,400 wildlife audio recording box, parabolic listening devices, P1000 Nikon, and we just acquired. If you bought it brand new, the replacement value would be $45,000 to $50,000 worth of night vision gear. We have 3 different units that turn darkness into daylight, and it's just a matter of time before that we bag the big fella in video, still pictures, and audio. But it's you know, we have to put a law in place for us. We're not gonna investigate within exceeding a half-hour radius of the house and store because they're 2 blocks away from each other, because it's just waste of gas, waste of time going an hour down the 101 highway towards Aberdeen to Lake Quinault. That's an active spot. Go an hour and 20 minutes west, you get to Nia Bay, the Makah tribal territories. It's on like Donkey Kong up there too, with, you know, Lake Ozette and the trails and logging roads, beaches. But, you know, there's so many Sasquatch, so much Sasquatch activity that we just stay within half an hour of our house. And, you know, you can't ask for a better place to be and a better job. I get paid to live in this house that's, you know, 2 blocks from work. I can't even smoke my cigarette when I commute to work walking, you know, and we've got 10 minutes down the road, I'm in prime Sasquatch territory.
That brings up an interesting point, because I get asked a lot from people, how do you know where Sasquatch is? How do you know where to find him? I've been through the forest for 25 years. I've never seen any signs of Sasquatch. How do you know when you're in Sasquatch territory?
Number one, stay out of what I call a yarn basket in North America. Stay out of the forest. It's, you know, Bob Gimlin, Paul Freeman, Independence Day video. You know, those are the ones that have been in the yarn basket, the thick, and they've come up spades with video of Sasquatch. But then we look at the other ones that are pretty conclusive. The helicopter, rotten snow on the ground, family shooting rifles. It's on YouTube. All of a sudden you see a Sasquatch run across an opening. The numerous photographs and videos. Ferry boat operator on the Mackenzie River, Northern Canada. Captain Indian guy looks out, records a Sasquatch standing at the edge of the water, walks about 40 yards and disappears into the willows and other trees. And then that's indicative of most of the good pictures and good sightings. They're happening out of the yarn basket. They're happening on the rim, on the banks of rivers and lakes and beaches at saltwater, alpines, edge of fields. You know, I saw a pregnant female and like really pregnant female, about 6.5, little bit taller. Her mate beside her on the left, you know, 60 yards away with a FLIR night vision monoscope in Omaha Indian Reserve, and a big, probably 7.5-foot male. And they were 60, 65 yards away from the vehicle on the paved road, walking in an open, freshly planted soybean field. And a lot of people are probably going, oh, well, how come he doesn't have a picture of it? How come they didn't drive on the field? Well, because it rained the night before, and from British Columbia, Pacific Northwest, I'm used to, if I drove into a farmer's field a day after a rain, I'm going to sink to my wheel wells and axles. So I chose not to tell the driver to drive in there. And we just sat there and carpe diem, seize the day or seize the night, and watched those two Sasquatches walking. Gave the native guide his monoscope. He looked, said a few words. Oh yeah, two Sitonga, two keepers of the medicine, Sasquatch in Omaha dialect. And he gave me the scope back, and I looked out his driver window, and they'd done a 90-degree turn. You could see the backs of their soles of their feet coming up as they're walking, just like Patty. And they just disappeared into the forest, walked in and disappeared into the darkness. And the next day we went back to look for tracks. I'm, oh, it rained yesterday. Should be some good trackways in there to cast, to get pictures. Well, when I walked into the field, the soybeans were only about that high. Well, that dirt was like concrete because it was 97 degrees the day after the night's rain. And we could have driven in there because it was so hard, but you couldn't find any tracks. You'd see some broken soil, but that was about it. And I was like sitting there going, man, we should have driven in there. We would have been right there with them, following into the tree line, getting video of them with my cell phone, but we lost the moment.
How important is this creature to you?
I remember one time watching a movie called The Emerald Forest in a movie theater, probably in the late 80s or early 90s. And it was, no offense, but it was a white child, blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, with his parents living in the Amazon jungle. And he got kidnapped by the Indigenous hidden tribe. And he basically, when he was a young man, he was a tribesman, spoke the language, lived like them in the jungle. And I remember at one point they were trying to get away from the forestry, and they went back to one of their homeland areas. And as they were walking through the jungle, all of a sudden they broke forth out of the jungle, and there was a clear cut as far as they could see. And that really resonated with me, even though I was a young man. I was like, wow, that's, look at the logging slashes around here. We're doing the same thing. I wonder what the animals feel like. And I remember talking to my grandfather about it. What about Chunaf? That's what we call Sasquatch. What do you think they think about all the logging and logging roads? My grandfather shook his head. He goes, I remember when I was a young boy and looking across from Alert Bay to Vancouver Island. You see that mountain over there? It's called Elephant Mountain because it looks like an elephant when you're north of it in the water.
Right.
Because I remember when they started it with salt water, and they worked their way up that mountain all around it, and they just kept going. And you could smell the dirt when it was blowing west wind because it was just devoid of trees. Back then, in the early 1900s, they never replanted. They just left it. And my grandfather said, that's what I felt like. I felt like someone had ripped something out of my stomach. The forest was gone. And he goes, when we would drive the Northern Vancouver Island Highway down the Campbell River, because he had two houses, and he said, you see all the logging? That feeling never goes away especially when I went to Hiladi, Adams River. It's on the highway. In my language, the village that was there was called Hiladi, the land of plenty. And me and my grandfather were coming down the hill on the highway. Hiladi was bald. The loggers had just decimated it. And that's one of the things why I would write a couple of years ago, chance encounters and investigating of Sasquatch, recommendations for regulations and laws. And I'll email it to anyone.
Hold on right there, Thomas, because we do have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Thomas Sewid, SasquatchIsland.com is his website. We're getting into another 90 minutes of talking about the elusive Bigfoot in the forests of Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, and everywhere across North America. All right, we're clear. That's what I wanted. Give me 2 seconds here, people. Where are we here? Over here. Over here. Where we put it? No, that ain't where we put it. Right here. Must be right here. No backgrounds. Sorry, I'm talking to myself here for a second. So we go like this. Is this where I put it? There we go. I just want to test something out here. Nope, that's not doing it. Put it in the wrong spot. There it is. That's where I gotta put it. All right. Let's bring Thomas back in. Having fun so far, buddy? Hold on, I got you muted. Hold on. There we go. T-Bone in the chat room was wondering if you could stand up a little bit to show your T-shirt. He wants to see your T-shirt.
That's one of my designs.
That's nice.
I have numerous designs. They're all on SasquatchLegend.com. On the homepage up top, hit featured artist, and I'll be the first one, Tom Sewid. It'll open up my collection of t-shirts, shower curtains, bath mats, mugs, cups, you name it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Aussie Boss Tiger, how you doing? Derek the Woo Poo, how you doing? Anybody else here I've missed? Let me just scroll on down here. No, I think we're caught up. No, if you want me to sound disgruntled, Jose.
Let me talk like this, then I will be a little bit disgruntled. Warden Dragon, how you doing?
There. I love that feature. All right. Warden Dragon, how you doing again? We got about 2.5 minutes. See what other voices I can do. What is this one? I think this one's just like hollow. Yeah, this one's hollow.
Oh, this one. Hello. Hello. And this one. Hello. And this, if you ever want to know what fat sounds like in the chat room,
It's like this.
it's like this. Where is
Is it this one?
This one? Yeah. This is how Fab sounds. This is how he talks. Hello, everybody.
All right. There we go. I'm done having fun now, Thomas. Lisa Piper, how are you? From Florida. Nice to have you here. Mhm. Thank you to Deanna Ann and T-Bone for the super chats. Greatly appreciate it. And shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can go get yourself one of these right here. Friends do not let friends UAP. They're UFOs, people, not the UAP BS that you're being fed. They're UFOs. So make sure you go get yourself one. If you have friends who are UAP people, tell them to get that shirt. Friends don't let friends UAP. It's true. I got to do one for Bigfoot, that friends don't let friends squatch. And do that one next. All right. We got about 10 seconds here, Thomas. Hi, Carl Olson. How you doing? Welcome. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're here with Thomas Sewid talking some Bigfoot. We're going to bring him in momentarily, but first I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go, SasquatchIsland.com. We have our good friend Thomas Sewid with us tonight. And Thomas, I would be absolutely delighted if you could share with us a couple of Sasquatch stories, close encounters that you have had, or ones that you have investigated.
The most recent one took place in October. I didn't actually get to see it, but in October I had a cancer scare. And, I was sitting here alone at the company house. My wife was in Kent, Washington, over by Seattle. And, after a couple of weeks, I was just like, man, I might be 6 feet under and pushing up daisies here. I better go play bush chess, because I got a report the day before about a Sasquatch vocalization and a sighting up on the edge of a logging slash behind someone's house just down the highway about 20 minutes. So I thought, yeah, I haven't played bush chess, and that's where you try to get bingo in Sasquatch. You try to see him without him knowing where you are. So I drove up to that area where that sighting took place, went up a road I'd never been up before, and I got up to a gate. And I walked through a logging slash. I got up to the upper corner where the timber was, second growth. And as soon as I got into second growth, I dove down, and I was in ferns that, the ferns out here are about 6, 7 feet tall, look like big pineapple heads. So I'm crawling through the ferns. You're in deer trails and bear trails, and I'm making sure that nothing can see me. And as I'm working my way uphill, I went about a quarter mile, and then that's when I got to where the bluffs were, the rocks. And I stayed in the ferns, worked my way, and I looked, and I could see an overhang. And I walked and I crawled up into there, and I just sat there, and the southeast wind was coming in my face. And I could look down into the second growth logging slash and see through the trees, the grass and ferns. And I could see the far second growth timber line going up the mountain, and I could see through the timber. And I just sat there for, doing what I did when I used to be a grizzly bear hunting guide. Just be patient, smoke all the cigarettes you want. Wind's coming in your face. Nothing's going to come up behind you. It's a rock wall, and they're not going to smell you in the timber, what you're watching. So I stayed there for about 2.5 hours. And all of a sudden I look to my right, and there's a doe walking up from the logging slash corner, and a buck right behind her in rut, trying to get her to, get it on, but she didn't want anything to do with him. And she's feeding, nibbling on thimbleberry leaves and grass. He's trying to get her attention. All of a sudden, her head just snapped, and her ears just went up, and she just turned and she went downhill at a full trot with the buck right behind her. So I'm like, okay, something spooked her. Got the scent of something up there. Cougar, bear, maybe a coyote. We'll just wait. I waited another 20 minutes, and that's when I crawled back into the ferns and I worked my way to a higher vantage point to get a different look into the upwind, see what that spooked that deer. So as I was crawling through the ferns, the rock wall was really steep, so I couldn't go up it. And I looked down second growth timber. There was a big maple tree, probably 4.5, 5 foot in diameter, just up from the flare of the trunk. And I said, okay. So I went to the ferns and I got to the tree and I stood up. Wind's coming against the tree. And then I looked to my right, the tree peak, kept scanning, got my little binoculars out. Actually, not too good size ones. And scanning. I'm doing like I did for decades of being a hunting guide, a hunter. I'm watching everything, looking for that whatever spooked that deer. Nothing on the right side of the tree, so I scurried over to the left side. I started tree peeking, and then I brought my binoculars out, and all of a sudden, poof! That Sasquatch excreted from its armpit glands the scent, and you got that powerful scent. And I knew right there I wasn't getting checkmate. I screwed up, and he took me out. I was now the one who got bingoed. So what I do is I've learned from the shamans that when you see a Sasquatch, you put your hands out towards them. And it's just the international North American indigenous hand signal of, I mean no harm. I have nothing for you to fear. And then I pointed to where the log and slash was downhill, where those deer went. And I turned and I walked out of the forest. And to me, it was carpe diem, seize the day. I'm like, almost got my checkmate, but not quite. I screwed up. I went to the left side of that tree and he was uphill, looking sidewind down. And that's when he erupted and I caught his scent. So that was a most recent encounter. The other one was in last July. My buddy and fellow investigator here on the Olympic Peninsula, he's an American veteran from the Gulf War and special forces. He's bushy. He knows his stuff, but he's a rafting guide and he takes people down the rivers for eco-environmental tours. And man, have we ever found tree structures and caves the Sasquatches have made. And he and his boss have had rocks thrown from the banks up above, splashing in the river when they go down or they're fishing. So anyway, him and I were going down. He had a couple of days off, so we went for a raft in July. Beautiful, hot day, and we're going through the canyon. It's about maybe, I guess, 100 feet on either side. And the river is probably maybe 80 feet wide at that point. And as we're drifting down slowly, and there's no current, no noise, it's just deathly quiet. And Steve goes, "Notice how quiet it is?" I said, "Yeah, no birds." And so I stood up on the bow of the raft and I put my hands out like that, looking up the hill. Yo, Weeksas, Majos Ye Chunafa. Hello, how are you doing? I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. Nothing. Then I have a theory. So I went in the Chinook trade dialect that all the North American Indians knew up until contact, and then after contact, European words got brought into the international dialect of Chinook in North America, like kapusta for carrot or for cabbage, karat for carrot, sukwa for sugar, mula for money. So anyway, a lot of us know Chinook, skookumchuck, big saltwater. So in Chinook, I said, Klahauya, how are you doing? And then up on the bluff, you hear, and then a higher pitch. And Steve just looked at me. His eyes were huge. He goes, "Keep speaking Indian to them. They answered you." And so I did, but all you heard was a tree knock. And that's them warning their clan, watch out, the humans are around. And I think I surprised them by speaking Chinook trade dialect to them. So we know that the shamans in some tribes to this day, they're not shamans, but they go into the forest as apprentice and they'll be in there for a couple, 3, 4 years, one case, 6 years. And when they return back to their tribe, they've had the Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction with their local Sasquatch tribe. And as the Omaha Indian tribe tells us, the name of their Sasquatch is Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. They know more about bush medicine in the area they live and have lived thousands of years than we will ever know. So that tribe member going into the forest has to be able to communicate with the Sasquatch. So in most cases, like my tribal territories, as my uncle told me, oh, just speak Kwakwaka'wakw to the Tunaka Sasquatch when you run across them. They understand our language. We've had some tribe members used to interact with them. The Omaha and other tribes I can't name have people that'll disappear and weeks later come back out. Right here on the Olympic Peninsula, I met one gentleman whose son said, oh, we always knew when Dad was going out walkabout, his shoes would be on the porch because we knew he took his shoes off and he was barefoot and he went into the forest. And so they're interacting with them. A lot of native tribes say, oh, we don't talk about Sasquatch, closed lip. One tribe in eastern Washington, they have a gateway with a guardhouse, and no one's allowed up there without permit or escort in some cases by the, I guess you could say, their environmental people and officers and that, because they don't want to disturb the Sasquatch, because Indians will know that we have to be in harmony and balance with the Sasquatches and respect them. And driving up a logging road to go shooting guns and leaving shell casings and all over the ground and garbage. No, we're not. They're going to put a gate up just so that doesn't happen. So the Sasquatches can live in peace as they've done for thousands of years. So Sasquatch is with that language. What I tell people is, in order to be a good investigator of Sasquatch, the first thing you got to learn is respect. And the first thing you need to do on that journey is open the door to the local Indian tribe where you're going to investigate. And it's easy to find, you know where their tribe offices are. They got websites. Make an appointment to go meet with them and bring them respect, maybe an offering of tobacco, and say, I give you a gift of tobacco. I would like to know if I can investigate Sasquatch in your tribal territories. Most tribes will say, yeah, just don't do it in our Indian reserve. Some tribes will say, absolutely not, in and out of our Indian reserve. We don't want that happening. But the majority of them will say, yeah, you might want to go see my cousin. He's always out in the bush. He's seen him quite a few times. He'll teach you about him. And the next thing you know, you got an Indian friend. And you ask your Indian friend, how do you say I come in peace? I mean no harm. I have an offering of food. Go in peace. My language, halakilasla, go in peace. Way, like aloha, goodbye. And when you learn that local Indian dialect and even their hand signals, my hand signals, that means Sasquatch. That means kawas, deer. That means black bear. That means wapoose, rabbit. So learn those things so that you can, when you go investigate, you're doing it out of with protocol and permission from the local Indian tribe. And that's your learning of being respectful to your local Indian tribe, your fellow hairless bipedal. And so when you do get out there, like here on the Olympic Peninsula, and you suspect there's a Sasquatch around, how are you? How you doing? I mean no harm. And I got chattering back. In my territories, you can speak Kwakwaka'wakw, and they'll chatter back. Omaha, I've heard them speak in Omaha to the Sitonga, and you heard something answer back. And one other place in Alberta as well, when they spoke their dialect, and Sasquatch answered. And so respect is everything. Patterns are everything. But once you get that protocol and permission of the native tribe, it's going to open up so many doors. Like I was talking to you earlier before we went live, there's one gentleman who has, YouTube shows and television shows, I think, but he's going to Ape Island, Vancouver Island, and it's all over the internet about that. But how many Indian tribes out of the roughly 30 or more throughout Vancouver Island is he actually going to communicate with and ask protocol and permission? None. He'll just go storming in there, traipsing around where possibly they don't want you traipsing around looking for Sasquatch. They don't mind hunters because Sasquatch sees a gun, they're leaving. But someone going up there stealthy and putting out trail cameras and audio equipment, a lot of tribes don't want that. You know, they want their Sasquatches they share their homelands with since the dawn of our creations, both of us,
Right.
just to be left alone, given respect.
I would like to ask you regarding that respect for the Sasquatch. Okay, they are. I have firmly believed over time, and please correct me if I'm wrong. They are a creature that you don't see them; they allow you to see them. How do you feel about?
For most people, me, I'm out there trying to get a video clip of them. So I'm using all kinds of stealth and windage. Windage is everything to trying to get that close encounter of the hairy kind, try to get close to a Sasquatch.
Okay, so what if Sasquatch doesn't want you around? What does it do?
Grabs rotten, falling down trees about that thick, snap. Next thing you know, boom, rotten chunk of tree explodes against a live tree standing up like shrapnel. You turn 180 and you run like hell, like I did, to your speedboat, sitting there inside thinking, please, 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 when I punch through the trees, I'm close to my speedboat and not quarter mile up the beach. And as I'm jumping and zigging, boom, 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 5 times. Shrapnel of rotten wood hitting me as I'm going out. He could have taken the back of my head out if he wanted to, but he was just letting me be known. You're not welcome here picking my mushrooms. That's what I was doing. I was picking chanterelle mushrooms, the edible ones, and threw rotten, broken tree trunks at me, 4 or 5 inches in diameter, rotten wood exploding. When I punched through the hemlock boughs, there was my speedboat not 60 feet down beach from me. And I ran, cut the line, jumped in, pushed it out, put the motor down, backed away, and a big stick come flying through the branches and splash beside my speedboat. That's how a Sasquatch tells you to get the beep out of here.
Are they territorial or are they accepting but cautious?
Nope, they're totally territorial. The northeastern Vancouver Island, the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe is made up of 16 different tribes. So Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, 16 tribes of the Kwakwaka'wakw and Lechwata. Kwakwaka'wakw for us in the north part of our territories simply means the Kwakwala speaking people, our language. And then I belong to the Mamliacha tribe. And next door to us is the Clowetsis. Further down channel is the Mumtagila, the Danachtau, the Quekosadanook, the Numgis, Wallace Quagil. That's who surrounds my Mamliacha territories. And we know by pictographs, petroglyphs, geological pronounced features like a point or a river, whose territories is whose. And that's where we're allowed to harvest within our tribal territories. Because prior to modern times, the Kwakwaka'wakw law was if someone came into my shellfish patch, my berry patch, my fishing area, I could kill them without retaliation to me and my family, because that's how guarded our food sources were. So the Sasquatches, one night, Peggy and I were in Kent, Washington at our condo. This was probably 18 years ago when we first got together. And we have a map of the Olympic Peninsula, Washington State, all the way up, halfway up British Columbia's coast and all of Vancouver Island on there. She was a kayaker. That's why she had it on her wall. And I was sitting there, we're sipping wine. And I looked at that map and I said, you know what? That's where those bi-tribal territories, they're seen here in the shellfish areas during the winter. They're seen here in the spring during the herring spawn season. They're seen over here at these two rivers during the salmon spawn. And in the big tides of May, they're out over here. But they're always the reports, the same clan, same color, 5 of them if they see the whole family group. And then over here, the ones that are kind of cinnamon colored, and they tend to be in this area here, go for these seasonal harvests all around. And I kept doing that. And all of a sudden, I just looked at the map. I said, Peggy, the Sasquatches in and around my traditional territories are using the same boundaries as our Kwakwaka'wakw tribes. I know I can't fish in that river back in the old days because it belonged to the Clowetzies. I know I can't fish in that river because it belongs to the Danakta. I know I can't go harvest seaweed over here because it belongs to the Wallace Quagil. You have to get permission, parlay with them, protocol. And I told her, I said, we're looking at, the only ones that seem to be breaking the pattern are the rogues, the solitary big males that were displaced as a clan family leader and just went on their own to live the rest of their life, not choosing to have another mate or family or territory. And we have one in my tribal territories that we call Crease because he's always on Crease Island or the neighboring one called Swanson. And he's an ornery son of a gun. He's the one who threw broken tree trunks at me. And he's been known to throw driftwood at boats at anchor. He's been known to scare the living heck out of a kayaker girl who just wanted in her days off to go kayak around the corner from the lodge, floathouse lodge she was working on, and just chill out. And just before dark, Sasquatch let her be known on Crease Island that you are not welcome here. And she had to quickly grab her tent, shove it in her kayak, jump in there, and there's rocks splashing in the water on either side of her as she was paddling out of the bay, crying away and scared. So they're territorial, definitely. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we get so much tree shaking, chest pounding, tree breaks, tree knocks, roars, rocks being thrown at us but not hitting us because they're territorial. They don't want us in their territory. They're telling you to turn around and go back where you came from. That's what a tree knock is. Or one, they're telling you, hairless bipedal, stop, turn around, get out of here. I don't want you here. I'm here, or me and my family are here. And you heed the warning. We were taught that as children. And then some people ask me, well, what happens if you don't heed the warning? Well, David Paulides will be writing about you in his Missing 411 series. They're making a documentary and talking about you as a missing person that ended up being a steaming turd on the forest floor 3 or 4 times because the Sasquatch ate you.
Are they overall that violent?
They're humans. So, like any other human, I don't know my neighbor across the street. For all I know, he's a cannibal and he's got corpses buried in his basement. And the majority of the people I meet are nice. They're friendly, just like any other hairless bipedal we meet. Some of them have good humor. Some of them are ornery cusses. Some of them are elusive and shy. And, some of them just act like you don't exist. And Sasquatch is no different. But every now and then we hear of the male hairless bipedal that gets told, there's the door, get out of here. Next time you and I talk, it'll be through a lawyer. And the next thing you know, your paycheck's getting garnished, your bank accounts are seized, your investments are gone, the house you helped pay for or probably did pay for, all the payments, the equity has been taken now by the court order, and you're stripped of everything, and you want to see your children that you love so much. And I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And because my ex is an evil person, she's a social worker, non-Indian. And we Indians have a saying, there's 2 things we fear. Police take our parents and social workers take our children. And my children don't interact with me to this day because of the poison that their non-Indian social worker mother put into them. And in 2008, I almost snapped. I almost went postal. I had some really evil thoughts in my head when she kicked me out and I was coming back to Vancouver Island on the ferry. I had one plan and one plan only. But when I pulled into Campbell River, a motel at the main junction, the religious manager would always put up a monthly quote. And it just happened to be in March 21st, 2008, when I pulled into Campbell River. Success is not defined on how high you reach. It's how high you bounce when you've hit rock bottom. And I thought about that. And within a few hours, I changed my mind. I wasn't going to go to hunt the 2 humans that stripped me of my wealth when they sued me for $640,000. And I watched the sheriff seize my house, my tour boat, my sea kayak fleet, my bank accounts were garnished.
My friend, I hate to cut you off there. We do have to get ready to go to break at the top of the hour here. It's so hard to believe we are through 1 hour on Spaced Out Radio. We have Thomas Sewid for another hour on the show, and we are going to have a great time learning more about Sasquatch and the encounters that he has had, the reports he has had, the footprints. We'll even ask him if there are different species of Sasquatch. We will bring that up next. Thomas Sewid, everybody. This is Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Thomas, if you hear me, we got about 5.5 minutes, and I'll be right back, everybody. I made this for you. That way you're not looking at the screen. There you go. These are my upcoming appearances. Write them all down. Let's hang out together. Tell me where you can hang out with me. I am back. So as you can see, I will be at UFO Con 2026, March 20th to 22nd in San Francisco. Go to caufocon.com if you want to meet me there. I will also be at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference coming up April 24th to 25th. Well, that should say Grand Island. I don't know why it says Grand Junction. I got to change that. I will change it. My birthday bash, May 21st to 25th in Vegas. We're still debating on the hotel. And then CaribouCon, September 18th through 20th, cariboucon.com. Make sure you check that on out. And we will see you guys there. Let's bring Thomas back in. And a big thank you tonight to Blue Cruise, Deanna, and T-Bone for the super chats. Also, a big thank you to Joe Monica for joining the SOR YouTube membership. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Hi, Night Rider. How you doing? Nice to see you. Number one, Nicole Sakic, right there. Number one. And we're coming back in 10 seconds, everybody. Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking Sasquatch with Thomas Sewid tonight from SasquatchIsland.com. Make sure you check it on out as we say hello to each and every one of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Aneath. Aneath is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's get to Thomas Sewid tonight. He is a Sasquatch researcher. SasquatchIsland.com is his website. And thank you so much for being here, Thomas. Greatly appreciate you.
Having fun.
How many different species of Sasquatch do you think there are?
I know of one. The ones I've seen in the Pacific Northwest, mainly in British Columbia coast, and the two I saw in Omaha Indian Reserve look the same. They don't have beards like you. Very like Indians, when we try to go beard, pathetic it looks, all stubbly and skin showing. That's what a Sasquatch beard looks like. So when you see these AI produced things and perceived art creations of what a Sasquatch look, and they have that big biker beard, hillbilly beard who just come walking out of a moonshine camp, no, not a Sasquatch. And looking at the pictures like everyone else does, the skunk ape to me looks like an orangutan. Dr. John Bindernagel, when he went to Kentucky and he came back, Dr. John Bindernagel was a dear friend of mine, a fellow investigator. He taught me so much. But he was so excited when he came back. He's like, Tom. I actually saw a sleeping Sasquatch, a female, and I actually touched the fur. And you could see her chest going in and out. He was so excited. And he was, telling me how they're going to release the DNA results and the whole 9 yards. But when I saw the video of that sleeping Sasquatch, it had like a muzzle, not as pronounced as a baboon, but it had a little bit of a muzzle. So I think that's a different type, maybe. I don't know. And, you hear the stories of how some of the other ones differ with splayed toe, for example. There's that famous Yowie 3 or 4 pictures, and you can see the splayed toe. Well, what's up with that? Because our Sasquatches in the Pacific Northwest don't seem to have a splayed big toe, like a finger, like a gorilla or a chimpanzee. So to me, I just know the ones here, so I can only say that I only know of one type. But the pictures out there and videos beg to differ, so I don't know.
What about some of these Sasquatch researchers who talk about this Gugway creature that looks like it has a baboon face It seems to be very violent out there.
I haven't heard anything like that myself. I've heard of Dogman though.
Is there a lot of dogmen in your territories?
None. Thank God.
I know up here where I am, the Cannon Lake First Nation has had people who've had encounters with the dogmen.
I did hear one report, and the description, he said it was like a wolf on two legs. He thought it was a black bear walking through the salal bushes and the log and slash. He was sitting elevated waiting for deer. And all of a sudden he saw what he thought was a black bear, but when it come out of the ditch onto the logging road, it was a wolf looking bipedal creature. And he said, I watched it walk up the road a bit, turn left, go into the log and slash, and it never went on all fours once. And that's the only one I've ever heard, and that's off of northeastern Vancouver Island on the mainland. But they're probably out there, I guess. I sure as heck don't want to run into one.
Living in Washington State and in British Columbia, as you do, there's a lot of little islands in between the mainland and Vancouver Island and all around the Puget Sound. Have you ever had any reports of Sasquatch swimming between the mainland and the little islands?
Oh, absolutely. Here on the Olympic Peninsula, we have, I think it's called Callum Bay or Squim. I don't know. It's on the northwest side, and I don't drive that highway much. But over on the Vancouver Island side, across Juan de Fuca Strait, it's like 28 miles across. Well, we have what we call the blue line. It's the border between Canada and the US. Back in the day, and when I was a commercial fisherman, it was a heavy salmon fishery spot, that Juan de Fuca, from just north of Victoria, Souk. There's a lighthouse called Sheringham. From there west to the blue line, the border, all the way up to to a lighthouse called Vanilla, basically across from Cape Flattery, the tip of north, what we call the upper left corner of Washington State, the U.S. Well, that fishing area, there was the gill netters would fish from 7 at night till 7 in the morning. Us seine boats, the big boats, we would fish with our nets from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. Well, one of the gill netters was talking in the weekend in Vancouver in the port, and someone said, "Hey, Tommy, you better go to that gill net boat down there and listen to that guy's story." So I go, "Why?" He saw a swimming Sasquatch in San Juan. That's what we call it, the Juan de Fuca. We call it San Juan because the San Juan Harbor is out there. So anyway, I go down that gill net boat and I said, "Sir, are you the one who saw a swimming Sasquatch? What do you want to know for?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of interested in Sasquatch, as we call them tuna in northern Vancouver Island." And he goes, "Well, had my gill net out and I was running the cork line. You run your cork line every half hour or so with a spotlight and keep your speed up. And the noise and the light scares the fish and they get gilled in your net." Well, he's running his cork line, and all of a sudden there's a Sasquatch pulling a salmon out of the gill net. And I said, "How far offshore were you?" He goes, "Probably 4 mile." And 3 4 mile, he goes, "I was in the, like 90 fathom line." And I'm thinking, what the heck's a Sasquatch doing swimming between Washington State and southern Vancouver Island? That's like 25 mile, 28 mile wide. A lot of current too. And other reports were of if you go to my YouTube channel, Sasquatch Island, I was commercial fishing up until 2 years ago, and I blew my leg out and I had to retire. That's why I got this cushy job managing SasquatchLegend.com now. 40 plus years commercial fishing came to an end. But while I was commercial fishing with the cell phone and video, for you people that are interested in Sasquatch and have read the books about British Columbia, especially John Green, Sasquatch, the Great Apes Amongst Us, John Bindernagel's book, and so forth. Well, I went by Buttedale, the abandoned cannery, where in John Green's book, he talks about this guy from the cannery ran across the channel to these islands. And as he come behind the islands, there was a Sasquatch or two of them swimming. Got to the shore, crawled out. So I'm videotaping Buttedale and that island and telling you this is where the encounter took place in John Green's book. And I can go on for probably an hour with all of the swimming Sasquatch reports I've read or heard about in my lifetime. And yeah, they swim. They're good swimmers too, by the sounds of it. And even my tribe, not my family, has title to it. You got to have title to be able to tell a legend about a crest. But some families have the crest of Chunachwis, the underwater Chunachwa Sasquatch. I don't have rights to that, so I can't talk about it. But if you reach out to the Kwakwaka'wakw people in the Umista Cultural Center, umista.ca. Reach out to the Umista Cultural Center. It might be written in their massive website on our crest figures and legends, or you can email them and I'm sure they'll tell you about Chunaquis or have a family member you can communicate who has title to that legend.
I want to get to some audience questions here because they are jacked right up to get some answers from you, if you don't mind, Thomas.
Sure.
All right, let's kick things off tonight with T-Bone here. Thomas, in your opinion, what happened to Portlock?
The sea otters came in and ate all the shellfish and crustaceans, crabs, and the Sasquatches up and DD'd out of there around the corner when you look at Google Earth to where that salmon stream is and the other shellfish beaches. Sasquatches will only stay in an area with high abundant seasonal foods. And Portlock, sure, there was sounded like a killer Sasquatch up there back in the day. Back in those days, people didn't hesitate. They shot at sounds, and possibly that Sasquatch got wounded. And like the one that was shot in the eye with the 270 on Vancouver Island, and it snapped and went rogue, hunter killer. And that's why we got some missing people on Vancouver Island. Some of us believe it's from the rogue Sasquatch that we know of that's got a shot out left eye. So Portlock, there definitely was activity there. But when Stephen Major went there to do the Return to Portlock movie with his gang of people that wanted to shoot one, I watched it, of course, and then I Google Earthed it. But as we were watching the show, and I'm a bushman, I can look at all the indicators. And they're on a beach at low tide, and I'm telling Peggy, you can see all the open, dead butter clams. And I said, and look offshore when they're filming, you can see sea otters swimming. I said, they're not going to find any Sasquatch. I said, the sea otters have gone in there and decimated the shellfish beds because we're not keeping balance in the animal kingdom as Eke, the creator, intended. We're allowing sea otters and sea lions and seals to proliferate like bunny rabbits. So we have an explosion in seals, sea lions, and sea otters, and they're just decimating our marine resources. And that's why I'm the president of Pacific Balance Marine Management, working with congressmen to see the North American Marine Mammal Protection Act amended or torn up so that we can harvest and sell seals, sea lions, and sea otters once again and bring harmony and balance back into the animal kingdom and the waters.
What about certain areas, before we get to another question? If you go up north to Alaska, okay, which has a bunch of islands in there, there are said to be islands and ghost towns there where people have been chased out by the Sasquatch, that they have.
Well, in sailing journals for British Columbia, Central Coast, McKay Reach, there's a bay called Bishop's Cove. It's famous because there's a hot springs there. And 40 years ago, people cement rocks there and put a roof gazebo up top. And I've soaked in it. It's great. But the history was a sail ship was coming up there. And when it turned from the south into McKay Reach, there was a flotilla of canoes. So they asked them, what are you guys doing? We're leaving Bishop's Cove. Whatever their name is for Sasquatch is very aggressive. The Sasquatches are taking our people, throwing boulders at us, our houses. So we're leaving. We'll let Bishop's Cove, the Sasquatch can have it. And now when you look at where the tribe lives, they live up McKay Reach, and it's called Hartley Bay. So there's a British Columbia incident of Indians making their village a ghost town because of Sasquatches. In Victoria Royal British Columbia Museum, when I was a teenager, me and my grandfather, I was lucky because we happened to be in Victoria for a few hours. I said, let's go to the museum. been there lots. Yeah, but I haven't been there with you to tell me all the stories on all of the carvings and different displays. Oh, okay, let's go, Tommy. And so we went, and oh my God, what I learned that day is retained forever. But we're looking at a plexiglass box, and inside was the village, I think it was Tassou in the Queen Charlotte Islands. All the long houses and miniature totem poles and big dugout canoe models on the beach. It just looked like it would look like 1,000 years ago. And I said, Dada, that's what we called him, my grandfather. I said, Dada, how come they got rocks on the planks on the roof? Now, these houses are like 50 feet long, 60 feet long, 15, 18 feet high, big cedar planks, foot and a half, 2 feet wide, 2 inches thick, 20 feet long, all laying there. And they got pebbles on there to represent boulders. He goes, oh, we used to do that so that when big winds hit, it didn't lift the plank off and you get rain and snow coming in. And he goes, but it's also, we used to do that because when I remember as a kid putting the rocks up there on a ladder. And I asked one of the elders why we're doing it. He says, so that when Junacha comes out of the forest and looks at our village, we've already thrown rocks at him. We don't have to throw anymore. So, it was interesting because I was at my kayak camp in the late 2000s or early 2000s. Anyway, we had to crawl underneath my cookhouse. The Sasquatches were throwing good sized sticks and good sized rocks hitting my roof. And I was afraid if the rocks got the size of bowling balls, they're going to come right through my roof. So I told the two people with me, let's go, follow me. And with our guns, we went underneath my cookhouse because I had it on 4-foot pilings because I was doubling as a doghouse for my guard dog. He would sleep underneath the cookhouse. And I always remember that night, it lasted for about 45 minutes. And then you could hear them chattering and everything. They weren't happy with me being there. A few weeks later, they would actually chase me out of the camp and I had to return the next day and shoot my gun off and pee all over around behind my cabins and shake my fist. I'm not leaving. But then before I left that day, when I was shooting my gun and peeing everywhere and shaking my fist at them, before we left, I put the ladder up to the roof and I told my two buddies, start passing me boulders. And I started putting them on the roof of my 5 cabins. They go, what are you doing that for? I'm letting the Sasquatches know you've already thrown rocks at me. You don't need to do it no more. It's a native thing. And, it's just using our cultural training in the modern world. Seems to work. They didn't throw rocks at me again.
Well, that's a good sign if they're not throwing rocks at you. Let's go to Jules here. Are Sasquatch humans with paranormal abilities more advanced than most, or just some of them, like some holy people of our ILK?
Over 30 encounters with Sasquatch. 2 of them within 5 feet, 4 of them within 20 feet. The rest all around me. I could hear them, smell them, seen them on a couple of occasions across the valley up in the Alpines. I've never had a supernatural experience. I feel I was EMP'd twice. Not EMP'd, ultra, what do you call that? Sound? Infrasound. I believe I was infrasounded twice because I got to breathe into a paper bag, sort of anxiety and fear and nausea. I think that, and then when I find out about infrasound, I think that's what happened. But of all those encounters of me living in bush and I'm not talking weeks, I'm talking years living out there, being around them. I've never had a supernatural experience. I did have an encounter one time where I looked at the tide book and the beaches and I said, hey, just before dark, real big low tide is just starting to rise. I better go to native anchorage and put my motor up like I did, put my hip boots on, jumped out of the skiff in about 8 inches of water as the tide was rising. The eelgrass was starting to lift. And I started picking cockles, shellfish, favorite food of the human and the Sasquatch. Well, Sasquatch is human. But then I'm turning around, putting it on the bow deck of my speedboat. Speedboat only draws 3 inches of water, so lots of water for me to tow it with the rope painter line around my waist. And I looked over to my right where my old trailer and my 10 by 10 addition was. And to this day, I saw the longest legged black bear in my life. And 4 or 5 hours later, dark, freezing in my muscle shirt and shorts, lying on the deck of my speedboat with a life jacket over top of me to try to stay warm. And when I got up, it's foggy, it's dark. I put my flashlight on, and I could smell bull kelp. And I looked over the side of the speedboat, and there's a line. I'm tied to a raft of bull kelp that their roots are affixed to a rock, maybe 40, 50 feet underwater. And I'm like, what the hell happened? Last thing I remember, I was picking cockles and I saw a long-legged black bear. Well, cut the line because I got a float house at Village Island. I go to always take a north bearing on your compass. I go north, just did an idle. All of a sudden, out of the darkness and the mist, fog, there's the beach, Rock Beach. I'm following it. I got my sounder on. And then all of a sudden, I notice this big spruce tree. Looks like a swoop jay coming out of the rock forest wall and just above high water. And I go, oh, I know that tree. I know where I am now. So I adjust my compass, move out offshore till I get into about 22 fathom of water where I'm mid-channel, got my map, compass, sounder, speed up a little bit. I know I'm mid-channel, and then slow down because I could smell seagull poop because my breakwater of logs around my float house and marina, the seagulls sleep on there at night, sit there in the daytime, poop on there. So I could smell that fishy poop stink. Slowed down again, then out of the gloom, there's my breakwater, follow it. There's my flashing amber solar powered light for my beacon of my dock. Pull up to my dock, tie up, go inside, get the wood stove going, go to bed, wake up in the morning, drinking my coffee, going, what the heck happened last night? All I remember is what I just said, a long-legged black bear. And I blacked out for 4.5, 5 hours or more. And people tell me, go hypnotized, find out what happened in that bay. Bet you it was an aggressive Sasquatch. And I said, well, it's called the mental band-aid. When something traumatic happens to you, nature, God, makes it so that you don't every day when you see someone, oh, when I was raped, oh, when I had this car accident, oh, and the plane crash. Your mind takes care of it, cushions it. Sometimes people got to get counseling for it. I did for some trauma, but
Right.
people tell me to get hypnotized. I'm like, you know how many skeletons I got in my closet? I don't
Right.
want anyone blackmailing me.
I
But
know
that's
that
what I
too.
call the mental band-aid. So when someone sees a porthole jumping, cloaking, mind speaking, orb turning, UFO flying Sasquatch, they got so scared when they saw a Sasquatch, because I know the first half dozen times I saw a Sasquatch, my heart was pounding, my legs were shaking, my throat was dry. I could hear my heart pounding in my eardrums. That's how scared you get. And I think some people can't deal with that trauma. And all of a sudden it's like, no, Tom, you got to understand and believe me. It turned into an orb. Tom, it cloaked. I seen it with my own eyes. And to me, I don't believe any of that stuff. It's the mental band-aid because I've had so many encounters with Sasquatch. None of that, what I call woo-woo, has ever happened. And I don't think it's ever happened with some people. Now, some Indian tribes believe in that stuff. I totally respect them, but within my traditional territories and homelands, no, I don't open that door. I keep it closed. And like I tell people when they try to shove it down my throat sideways, that's like the Christianity, shoving Bibles down Indian indigenous people's throats sideways, and they would
I
kill
hear you.
over 126 million people doing that. And they would have residential schools. So don't try to shove that belief down my throat sideways, because between the criterists and the woos, there's a wall that Donald Trump couldn't even build. And we need to stay on either side of it.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there because it is that time once again where we do have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. We have Thomas Sewid until the top of the hour. We are going to continue with our great audience questions. If you ever want to, in Radio Land, get in on the questions, you got to go to our YouTube chat and we can fire them off from there. We appreciate our audience participation. It makes this show so much more fun. Thomas Sewid, his website, SasquatchIsland.com. Make sure you check it on out. It's also got some great gear there for you if you want to load up and look good. This is Spaced Out Radio. Second half is next. listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, Thomas, we are clear. He's already gone. Vanishes. Making sure that I'm not missing anything. All right. Resist Evolve, how you doing? Two seconds here. All right. Oh, Benno, thank you. B to the E to the NNO. It's good time right now. Good times. I love talking Sasquatch. LWD 40, how's the lube going? Good. Good. That's what I want to read. The lube is flowing. Good. You gave yourself a couple of shots, Mel, just to make sure. What is a woodwoe? I've never heard of a woodwoe. We got 30 seconds. Let's bring Thomas back in. Thomas, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. We got about 25 seconds. Thank you to T-Bone tonight, Deanna Ann, Blue Cruise, and the Benonator for for the super chats. Joe Monica, welcome to our membership on YouTube. Thank you very, very much. We got a bunch of questions coming up for you, Thomas, in the next half hour.
Oh, now they're mad.
All right. We're coming back in 5 seconds. We are into the second half of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in, wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to all of you. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. All right, Thomas Sewid is here. SasquatchIsland.com is his website. We're going to get to some audience questions right off the bat here. And we're going to start with Jose here, Simon, who is asking, what do you think the ratio is of female Sasquatch to male Bigfoot?
Sasquatches move like a military squad. The nucleus of the atom is the females, the young, the sick, the injured, the elderly, and outside of them, the electrons, protons are the scouts, harvesters, and hunters. So when a human gets close to the clan, one of the electrons, hunter, gatherer, scout, Morse code, body language, everyone knows, stay on guard. The next command or mimic or vocalization or body movement, because I've seen a Sasquatch shudder like a dog, and the oily hair was just vibrating. And he's looking to his left, and I'm behind him downwind. And I'm watching, I'm trying to get close to him to get a good picture. I knew that with the flip phone I had to be close. Otherwise, no one would believe me. I took a photograph of the Sasquatch. And all of a sudden, he just looking to his left. And I looked to his left, and like that picture you sent me tonight, there was a younger, smaller Sasquatch, about 6.5 feet tall, up the tree, standing on the branch, looking into the wind, looking for me. And that big one, after he shuddered, he licked his nose, trying to smell me. And all of a sudden, that's when I'm like, yo! And they both, he turned and he just bolted, took off. The one in the tree jumped, you could hear him, and then this off he went. So, with that being said, I just happened to probably come across two travelers or hunters or whatever. And the scout was probably the one in the tree. But when they give the body language or the vocalization to evacuate and go to rally point 1, they're going to use windage to their advantage. They already know where they're going, and that whole clan will move like an atom with electrons and protons. But some of the electron protons will stay and try to draw the perceived threat away from the family clan. And that's why it's so hard to see females sick, injured, old, and young. So a question like that's a great one, but until we get the Diane Fossey Jane Goodall interaction, we're not going to know.
All right, let's get to another question from our chatters. Let's go to Ashley here, who is asking, does Sasquatch, in your opinion, travel across, I know you're not a woo guy, but I'm going to ask this question. Does it travel across portals in and out of the forest?
No. Next question.
Paramarv wants to know, that's about portals too. And
No,
yeah, Thomas isn't a woo kind of guy.
not into the woo-woo.
Thomas, you're sighting around Merritt, British Columbia. Can you talk about the white Sasquatch? Have you heard of this?
Can't say Merritt specifically, but I've heard lots about white Sasquatch. I've asked numerous shamans I've learned from about white Sasquatches, and one of the key questions I asked in one of the shaman ladies was, after 5 days of under her training, how old do Sasquatches get? Oh, 100, 120 years old. Older ones, 150. The white gray ones, 180, maybe a little older. How they get so old? Aren't you listening to what I'm teaching you these last few days? Sitonga, keeper of the medicine, is what we call our Sasquatch in our tribe. We learn the medicines and poultices and remedies of the plant life from them. They have forgotten more about medicinal plants and usage than we will ever know. That's how they get so old. And when you look at all the sighting reports, I've grizzly bear hunting guide out in the bush for decades. You see grizzly bears and black bears trailing 15, 20 feet of tapeworm out their back ends. Ugh, gross. But, sometimes you'll find bones of a grizzly bear or black bear outside of their den. And you're always looking for their claws, their penal bone if it's a male, their skull, because the skull's worth thousands of dollars on a grizzly bear or black bear if it's a trophy one. They died of old age, so it's going to be a big skull. So when you dig around and crawl and you find their bones inside their den and most of it out, it means the wolves, other bears dragged them out and consumed their flesh. Bones are there after decomposition. And darn well it was probably a bear that died of old age in its den, or else it didn't eat enough clay just before den up. They'll eat clay until they turn around and look at their droppings and see clay, and though they flush their body out in their stomach when they go to sleep, through their intestines and colon to their sphincter is all clay. So when they go to sleep, the tapeworms die. They suffocate in the clay. A sleeping bear for 4 or 5 months, the tapeworm, not having any food coming into the stomach, will just eat the bear inside. So, it's the medicine is everything about them, and the white ones, they're the really old ones. And me, I've seen a white one once when I was about 12 years old across a lake with my father and my mother and sister and another couple. And we weren't close to it, but it was a white Sasquatch in Clearwater, British Columbia, kind of close to Merritt. So, is it like the Kermode bear, a genetic anomaly? Is it albinism? No, I don't think so, because most of the reports of white Sasquatches or gray ones are really, really big. So I think it's old age. And I think those are the ones that are probably pushing, as the shamans teach us, 150 to 180 years old, maybe a little older. Sitonga, keeper of the medicine, the Sasquatch.
How long do you think a Sasquatch lives?
I just said close to 200, some of the older ones. Most of them
That
120, 150.
That long?
Well, you look at us, what was our life expectancy in 1925? 100 years later, what's our life expectancy? 80, 90? What's our life expectancy going to be like when our doctors are like Doc on Star Trek and with a cell phone over your body? Maybe we'll be getting up to 150, 200 years here in the next generation or two.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go next to Carlo. Or Carl, pardon me. Thomas, have you ever heard of military bases having kill squads on these creatures?
The Gatling gun was created to mow down Indians so that the non-Indians can take over Sasquatch Island, Turtle Island, North America. The Gatling gun has been perfected with night vision optics, tracking systems, better helicopters. And when I'm outside having a smoke here this time of the year in the winter in the Olympic Peninsula, and I hear 2 or 3 helicopters at night, I cringe thinking about all them Sasquatches that are getting Gatling gunned. And the video that's on YouTube now that I got to see 5 years ago when it was smuggled out of the military camp in eastern Washington showed a Sasquatch running, looking at a helicopter. It runs right, it runs left, it runs right. As it's going left, it jumps a creek probably 25 feet wide. You see the hair, the muscles, the fear, the hair. and all of a sudden the screen went to snow. I looked at it 6 times in Spokane. I handed it over to the person who showed it to me. And I said, that Sasquatch died when it went to snow. He goes, yes, Tom. They heard your podcasts and they agree with you. The military's gunning them down. Now, the next question will come up the screen. Why? Well, because the United States has two recognized indigenous tribes, the Inuit in northern Alaska, the North American Indians in Alaska and the lower 48, and the Hawaiians in Hawaii. And Canada has 3 recognized indigenous tribes. We First Nations Indians, the Inuit up north, and what they call Cherokee in the US, Métis in Canada, the mixed bloods, that got their recognition some 5 or 6 years ago and got a check for $1.96 billion. And every other indigenous tribe in North America costs the governments and taxpayers billions of dollars. I think it's something like 60 billion in Canada. So the last thing the governments of Canada, US, Australia want, and South America, is another indigenous tribe stopping logging, mining, fracking, urban sprawl, railway, highway development. And when the environmentalists get in bed with the indigenous people and protest and say we don't want logging, mining, fracking, pipelines, LNG projects, urban sprawl. If you're a rancher in a state or a province and you have thousands of acres of land that your great grandpappy came in a wagon and bought from the government, and that rancher who's a millionaire wants to mow down 250 hectares of his timber so that he can plant alfalfa fields so he can sell it to the buyers to put on jumbo jets to fly to Saudi Arabia for the Arabian horses through those billionaires over there and make a lot of money. Well, he's going to have to fill out a Sasquatch environmental assessment plan, which will take years, cost hundreds of thousands, get stuck in bureaucracy, and never get red stamped so he never cuts one tree down on his ranch. That's what the identification and confirmed existence of a Sasquatch is. And that's why the militaries are out there gunning them down, trapping them, as Art Bell's person he interviewed in 1991 on FM radio that I listened to about being in a military base looking after surveillance cameras in the underground tunnels where Sasquatches were observed. The military went in, gassed the Sasquatches in those things during the daytime, and he watched them being tied down on gurneys and brought out of there. So yeah, the military is killing the other tribe, the Indians, like they did when they first came here.
All right, let's go to another question here. Let's go to Jules, who is asking, if you have seen a Sasquatch and moved far from there, do they follow you or do they tell you or each other about kind of like crows share information?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they'll put a scout or two on you, and I used to be in the bush for weeks on end, sometimes a couple months. You know, me and my cousin, we were just out there doing a tuckalook, enjoying life, carpe diem. And he was heavy fetal alcohol syndrome, so he was always being, as he said, teased by the chunach, the Sasquatch. But we'd know that we'd be, sometimes almost 2 weeks until we went over a ridge and into a different valley. And then I'd be like, doesn't look like the chunachas are on us no more. No, I noticed that too. And yeah, they'll stay on you. They're watching you. They don't want you near their young and old and sick or get near their burial sites.
Okay. Let us continue on. Let's go over to Blue Cruise.
I'm drinking water in my Sasquatch cup I designed.
Beautiful. Did I hear you correctly that there are no known Gugway sightings or encounters in the Pacific Northwest?
What is a Gugway?
That's that baboon-like creature we talked about earlier.
I haven't heard any myself, and I haven't encountered any, so I don't know.
All right, moving on. Let's go to Matthew. Are there woodwoes related, or pardon me, are there woodwoes related to Sasquatch?
And what is a woodwoe?
That's what I need to find out. What is a woodwoe? Let's find out. Woodwoes is a mythical figure from medieval European folklore, literature, and art, often described as a wild man of the woods. They're typically depicted as hairy, bearded, human like creatures, often carrying a club and representing the untamed, chaotic, and natural world outside civilization.
So I would think that woodwoe in Europe is a Sasquatch. I seen that woodcut picture in a painting of, I guess, a woodwoe, and this looks like a Sasquatch. What is a Sasquatch? It's just, to me, it's my Adam and Eve. So a lot of people come into the store, SasquatchLegend.com here, and I always look at them and go, Patagonia. You know what that means? No, it's a brand of jacket, a hat. No, it actually means the indigenous people from the Chile, land of the big hairy ones, referring, I'll point the biggie, 8.5 feet tall, a mannequin of a Sasquatch. It refers to their Sasquatch. So some of the DNA coming in, I just heard it recently, there was traces of Neanderthal in the North American supposed Sasquatch sample of DNA. And then, of course, humans are being tested with DNA and they're finding Neanderthal chromosomes in Europeans and Eastern Asians. So I hypothesize that Neanderthal possibly is the Sasquatch. And we know that humans supposedly bred with Neanderthals to make them extinct, and we became what we are, Homo sapien. That's why we have some Neanderthal genes in us. Now, I'm no specialist. I have no capital D, small r period before my name, but I do look at everything and go, maybe all the perceived renditions that from childhood and school with all the cavemen, and there's Neanderthal, who always looked like Jesus Christ, Caucasian, white skin, little bit of a beard, big brow ridges, big jaw, muscular. Maybe they didn't look like Jesus with Caucasian white skin. Maybe Neanderthal, and still does have hair all through his body, which is the woodwoe in Europe, maybe Alma Sati in Asia, and possibly Yeti. So we don't know until we get the proof, you know. Hopefully it won't be proof by a bullet. Hopefully it'll be proof by accident, falling down, uh, natural causes, run over by a train or a semi trailer, like supposedly happened a couple times. So that's what I think with your question about woodwoe. I think that, you know, start opening up the door that Neanderthal had a hairy body, and maybe Neanderthal is Sasquatch. And if camels, giant sloths, rhinos, woolly mammoths, mastodons can migrate over the Bering, and now they're talking about the Icelandic Greenland land bridge back when the glaciation periods were taking place. Maybe, well, Neanderthal would have walked across too, and Gigantopithecus, and possibly Homo florensis. And that's why we have Bukwus, the little hair-covered people in North America, otherwise known as stick people and little people. My tribe, Bukwus. I maybe speculate that maybe it's Homo florensis that came over the land bridge. And then we got some of these splayed toed, skunk ape looking, orangutan, gorilla looking Sasquatches. Maybe that's the Gigantopithecus branch of the tree. And then we have all of these Sasquatches. Well, maybe those are the Neanderthal remnants. So something for everyone to go and ponder.
All right, let's continue on here. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's go to T-Bone, who is asking, Thomas, why do some who encounter Sasquatch say they look like they're gliding?
Because they know how to bushwalk. They know how to go through the forest. If you look on YouTube, it amazed me because I seen a Sasquatch one time that looked like it was moving without moving its legs. But then when I looked closer, the legs were moving so fast. And when you want to walk fast, quietly, you move your legs fast. You scurry like a mouse. And so when I saw that Sasquatch that time moving like it wasn't moving its legs, but I did because it was in ferns 5 feet high. Then I saw these dancers on YouTube a couple weeks ago, and they do this dance with these like robes, and they're just gliding like they're on wheels. and it's all about how they move their legs. And then when they showed them out of the robe how they move their legs, I'm like, they're bushwalking like that Sasquatch, and like I do when I want to be quiet. And I highly recommend everyone look for that YouTube clip of the dancers that glide, and you'll be like me, possibly amazed. But when you see the legs move of those human dancers, that's exactly what a bush person like me does when they want to move fast and quiet, and exactly what I saw a Sasquatch do one time.
Let's continue here. We got a few more questions coming up. Let's go to Jules here. Do you think the elongated skulls found from ancient times are Sasquatch skulls from when they had worldwide civilization before Homo sapiens tried to wipe them out?
No, what I think is, well, some of them are alien, definitely, but we'll keep that door closed. But let's go to the Hoskamo, otherwise known as Quatsino, northwestern Vancouver Island, British Columbia. It's called the Koskamo head, the slope head from cradle binding for the noble woman, the matriarchs. They were born into nobility as a matriarch. They were cradle boarded. And so that when you see the black and white Curtis photographs, you'll see that conical head. Well, was it because we took our canoes all the way down to Lima, Peru, and saw the conical heads down there and came back up and did that? No. I think what it was the tribes in South America, Mayans, and in West Coast Vancouver Island saw the Sasquatch with the conical head. And because they know they're just members of the other tribe, and they're my tribe's highest ranked crest, well, then our people, our ancestors might have said, well, we've got to have our babies that are born into nobility look like the Chunaka, sloping conical head, and we'll cradle board them because we weren't born that way, because we evolved from the Sasquatch to lose our conical head, our heavy set jaws, our hairy bodies, our nocturnal vision, and we lost the ability to excrete from our armpits. But when you do get stinky armpits like I had this morning because I didn't have a shower for 3 days, it's the remnants of my scent glands, and all hairless bipedals have remnants of scent glands in their armpits, and that's why we get stinky armpits when we don't bathe. So looking at the conical heads in South America, Central America, West Coast, North America, because I'm a Kwakwaka'wakw and we had the head binding in my culture, and there's all kinds of archaeological and anthropological history about that. I look at it on a different level because I accept Sasquatch as my Adam and Eve. They're what I evolved from with my ancestors. And the conical head comes from, wanting to look noble like them.
I think we got time.
Don't forget, I got a big announcement to make.
Okay, well, let's get to your announcement. What do you have?
So last week, Peggy and I had to go zooming across Washington State, across the Palouse, like amazing place, flat land, rolling hills. And we went to Moscow, Idaho, and we bought the private collection of Bigfoot casts, 38 casts in all framed in boxes with the provenance of who casted it, the Grover Krentz Cripplefoot Bossberg replica ×2, and Titmus and Gimlin and Titus, and the list goes on. Even Josh Gates with the Nepal Yeti, Eric Shipton's replica of his Yeti track from when he tried to did conquer Mount Everest. So Sasquatch Island teamed up with SasquatchLegend.com. We went 50-50 and bought this for a few $1,000s. I won't divulge what it was, but we're making a 2,000 square foot Sasquatch museum in SasquatchLegend.com in Forks, opening June 1st. And we will be the largest, most informative Sasquatch museum in the world. I'll be having my masks carved of wood of Chunacha and Bakwus, the little people, the full potlatch regalia that we use in potlatches, as well as in the Sasquatch conferences on display, Sasquatch killer stones, and the list goes on.
Thomas Sewid, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
That was fun.
You have a great night, okay?
You too.
All right. Thomas Sewid, everybody. How awesome is he? Thank you, buddy. All right. Gonna let him go there. And this is just a little reminder for all of you. And I will be right back. All right. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave. And this here is the wizard.
Hey, I'm the wizard.
Look at the wizard. Excuse me. Look at the wizard, everybody. There he is.
There he is in all of his grandeur.
He's feeling better, eh?
Oh, I feel a lot better. Yeah.
Good.
Yep. I had severe brain fog the next day. It was horrible.
That's
But I'm
lovely.
glad I got over it like 3.5 days. So
Right. I'm glad you're feeling better, buddy.
yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Being sick sucks.
It does. It does.
It's not fun. Not fun at all. All right. Let's go here. All right. We have about a minute to go here, brother. Swamp Dweller will be 5.5 minutes. And then we'll cruise into you and make a good show here.
All right.
You don't look happy. Are you happy today?
Yeah, I'm tired because even though I'm over my sickness, I got up at 12:30 last night, was up till 4 a.m.
Oh,
I went back to bed for like 2 hours before I had to get up and take my kids to school.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Because on top of being sick, my wife was traveling for work. So it's just me with the kids. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being up with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Benno, Blue Cruise, Deanna, and T-Bone for the super chats. Welcome to the membership. Joe, Monica, thank you for joining us. Here we go with the next hour, everybody. We are into the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Aneath. Aneath is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. My story takes place over 3 summers on the Front Range in northern Colorado. I grew up camping in our family spot, a place called the Neverwinter Wilderness, which was full of ghost towns and creepy abandoned mines. The place had been passed down for many generations, and I thought it was beautiful, despite some of the creepier elements. When I turned 15, I got my permit and felt grateful to be able to go to my family's lands and explore unsupervised. My first outing was a disaster by most camper standards, as I forgot most of everything, and basically had some beans and hot dogs. However, I was ecstatic to be out here. It was only a few minutes after going out on my own that I started to feel off. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I quickly dismissed the notion, as I knew I was the only human out here, so if anything was watching me, it was likely a big cat or an animal of some kind. I wasn't too worried. Just to be safe, I pulled out my father's AK and loaded it. Nothing would get me like this, I thought. Near sundown, I figured I'd go out on a ridge and chill to watch the sunset. Bringing my AK and some stew, I headed up and soon saw the magnificent wonder and glory that was the sun setting on our land. After such a scenic view, I'd forgotten all about the idea that I might be being watched. Heading back down to the terrain, which was very steep, I was careful and slow in my climbing. It was at this point I heard something falling from above, but it turned out just to be a boulder. It wasn't headed my way, so I didn't think much of it and took a second to catch my breath. As I was about to continue my trek, I heard a snapping sound that made me jump. It was in the direction of the boulder, but closer. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to leave now. It was because of this feeling I bolted out of there, and while I fell, tumbled, and had a few slips and slides, I mostly made it down unscathed. I dropped my back once I reached the bottom and took a more deep breath again. I felt rather exhausted from rushing down and probably also from the adrenaline I'd gotten upon hearing the noise I'd heard. Suddenly, I feel dizzy as I sit up on my truck, trying to get my bearings. I realized I passed out again after I awake. It was the sound of nearby splashing that shot me awake. I grabbed my rifle and tried to get my bearings as I peered around almost panoramically. Looking around reveals no one and nothing. It's now when I realize, suddenly, everything has gone completely quiet. It shouldn't be this quiet. Wanting to see what made the initial splashing, I stopped myself short of checking it out at the realization it's almost dark. I start a fire and stare towards the tree line, listening closely for any sort of sound as I wait. It's only a few minutes before I hear snapping sounds again. I turn to look through my scope and some kind of visual when out of the blue, a giant rock lands near me and my camp. The rock came from behind me, and so quickly, I turned around and looked back. The night sets in eventually, and I'm still up, wired, paranoid, and shaking in fear from whatever is out there, which I can still hear from time to time. Almost as though something is waiting just out of sight for me to rest again or perhaps let my guard down. After a few more hours go by, I realize it's gotten unusually quiet again. I can't take the tension, and after a bit, I put out my fire and move into the cab of my truck. I'm about to say screw this and hightail it out of there without my supplies when I remember the road out is narrow and treacherous. I wouldn't be able to risk breaking an axle or getting stranded, so I decided to wait in my truck with the doors locked. The night is long, and I can't sleep, but eventually, first light shows itself on the horizon. The moment it was light enough out, I threw my stuff in my truck and I hightailed it out of Dodge. I hate being scared and I hate being even more made a fool of. I wanted to know that I wasn't crazy when I left. I would eventually spend 40 days out in the valley in total. I was never alone. Every time I went up there, I always felt something watching me. I built a cabin out there at one point, and when I'd camp out, I'd get ground rules for myself, such as never leaving the tent or my cabin for any reason at night. The nights I tried spending in a tent were the worst, but it was never nice. I would quite often see something in the distance, but I could never make out what it was. If I tried to get a better look, it'd vanish. If I was in the cabin, I'd hear something running its claws along the walls or tapping on the door at night. Every once in a while during the day, I'd catch a glimpse of something or someone watching me as I worked or chilled. I'm not sure what was out there, but there was a night where whatever it was tried to kill me. That's not a story I'm comfortable sharing quite yet. I simply wanted you to know there's something out there in that valley. There may be more than one of whatever was watching me. Regardless, I think it pays for people to wish to camp, on my family land or not, to always bring something to defend themselves, and to always be aware of their surroundings.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another great story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to listen to each and every day and night. So thank you, Swampy, for another great one. From the swamp to the stars, the wizard is here with the UFO report. The Wizard, how you doing, my friend, after battling the flu, being on the DL for a couple of days?
Doing a lot better. We'll be looking forward to tonight, getting hopefully a nice long night's rest. Feel like a little bit of the Christmas story. Papa and his whatever kerchief or whatever. Like I'm going to go get a long winter's nap in after the show.
I don't blame you. Don't blame you at all. Well, thank you so much for being here. We always appreciate it. It's been a busy few days in the UFO world, man, where,
Yeah.
from James Fox's press conference that he had in Washington, D.C., to a lot of different news from Jacques Vallée and elsewhere. I mean, where do you want to start here?
I think we can start with George Knapp's report that he put out on his local Las Vegas news station. So anybody who probably remembers or watched the last UAP hearing where George Knapp was one of the panelists, if you want to call it that, he mentioned that he had a lot of UFO related documents that were smuggled to him out of Russia, and the Congress panel seemed to be really interested in just how he got those documents out of Russia. Not so much the contents, but just how he did it. But he just recently put out a report that talks about one of the accounts that are in those documents that he has. Of course, all the documents are in Russian. And so he had them translated by an individual. And so he presents the report. So basically, the account is that in 1984, several high-ranking Russian military individuals at a nuclear site in what is now the Ukraine witnessed what is described as swarms of UFOs over and near the nuclear site. They then, it's implied, I guess, that then suddenly something activated the nuclear missiles at this site, entered the codes in order to make them, ready to launch. Then the UFOs disappeared, and then the nuclear missiles disarmed themselves.
I had heard something about that before, where apparently it was the same thing that's happening, in the United States, where they were disarming the nuclear weapons, and I don't know how true this story is. So don't hold any, punches that I'm quoting something that is absolutely real. But if you go back to that time in the 60s when this was happening at the nuclear facilities where was it? North Dakota it was happening or someplace like that?
Well, I think, a number of places around the country actually, that was the 90s press club, right, with Stephen Greer. It's a lot of those guys
Absolutely
talk about it. Yeah.
But I think it was from what I had heard, and I'm not sure, I heard this story about a decade ago. So please forgive me if I'm quoting it wrong. But apparently it was happening at the same time, and both Russia and the United States thought that the other one was starting a nuclear war or about to launch nukes at each other. And they were literally on the phone with each other saying, no, we got these UFOs over here that are causing this and are starting it. And Russia was like, yeah, us too, and that kind of diverted a potential nuclear war. Now, once again, I don't know how true that is. Could be just a fictitious rumor, but it's interesting.
It is. I mean, and that was, like you said, supposedly in the mid to late 60s, whereas this is in 1984. So if it's happened, 15, 20 years prior, it stands to reason that maybe it happened over, continuously over that span of time, as opposed to just being like, we're going to do it in 63 and now we're going to do it again in 84, So the other thing I thought was really interesting, I'd like to kind of tease out, if you will, what the motive behind such an activity would be. If it's to deter us from taking steps to blow ourselves up, being able to say, hey, look, we can turn these things on and we can just as easily turn them off. I wonder if, this, the ability for them, for quote unquote, them, UFOs, whatever, to activate nuclear missiles and then deactivate them as well, if that is a root of a lot of the threat narrative that is thrown around as well. So it just really makes me wonder, what would the motive be of a, of a superior intellect, if you will, for doing that, for turning them on and then turning them back off.
I don't know. I've often wondered that. And I think that one of the issues that they do it for is kind of to show their power. Like, these are nothing to us.
Yeah.
You could fire them at us and nothing is going to happen. We have control. If we wanted to, we have control. And of course, that's going to be seen as a threat. But I look at it the opposite way. I'm not trying to see it through rose petal glasses. Okay. I look at it the opposite way, though, of them basically saying, hey, humans, we're here. Be good. Okay. Be good. You got a good thing going here. Let's not screw it up with these stupid, weapons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, the thing that always strikes me as odd about the nuclear situation is that, everybody always thinks about, well, they showed up, after we dropped the 2 bombs as a part of World War II. So there's oftentimes a correlation made between us detonating nuclear weapons and the UFO showing up. But I think we could probably agree at this point, whether you accept the ancient aliens theories, or if you're just willing to consider that, there are numerous stories throughout history that talk about wheels in the sky and lanterns coming out of the sea and various things like that, that probably indicate that UFOs have been a long-ranging activity on the planet. Plus the fact that, the U.S., along with other countries, but the U.S. was the heaviest, detonated like 1,500 and something, nuclear bombs over the course of their development of, what became their nuclear stockpile. So why choose? It's almost like they understood or interpreted intent, right? Because they did all these activities during the Cold War, during a time when we were heightened tensions about, Russia launching at us launching at Russia, etc. So it's almost like they turned them on and shut them down in a way that that would correspond to our intent to use them, but not our intent to test them.
You could be very right there. You could be very right. It is a scary situation nonetheless. And, I just really believe, though, my friend, that these, look, if they can, I've got so many thoughts going through my head. I'm getting confused here. So let me just try and focus here for a second. Okay. I think what it shows is wherever they came from, let's say they came from Zeta Reticuli or Orion, wherever they came from, if they have the technology to get here, I'm pretty sure they have better, stronger toys than what we have right now. Okay. I do. But I also think that it was kind of a sign that we're not playing this game. Mm-hmm. We're not going to play this game. And if we really wanted to take you out, and this goes against my argument towards the whole threat narrative. If they wanted to take us out, they could. They would have already.
Yeah.
Okay. They would have been here. If we can believe that alien life has been here for millennia, they've been visiting here. if that is the case, which I believe it is, they would have came and taken over this country, or pardon me, not this country, this world, our people on this planet, when our best weaponry was a spear, maybe a cannonball, and a bow and arrow. That's it.
Right.
And if you want to go a little bit further ahead in time, maybe a musket. Okay. They would have got us at our weakest point. Now, for humans, we're pretty strong. Okay, because of the toys that have been built in the name of defense around this planet. And I think they look at them and, you know, kind of like you and I as adults look at pieces of Lego. To a 3-4-year-old, they don't know how to read the directions, put the Lego together. We look at the direction, we're like, okay, let's build this thing. And I think that's the way they're kind of acting with these nuclear weapons, you know, in these missile silos, saying, really, guys, you're going to put these Legos on the floor for us? We're just going to play with them a little bit, maybe give you a little bit of a scare. Because there is no fear there. And if they wanted to take us out, they already would have. Your thoughts? We got 3 minutes.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Again, strategically, it would make more, even if there's some people who say there's just scout ships. And so scout ships don't have the ability to conquer the planet, but you know, the ability to fly, you know, either light years or even to span dimensions still puts you in a position to be able to put us in a much lower pecking order on the planet. So regardless of if it's one scout ship or 30, if they wanted to conquer us, they would have done it, like you said, back when we had spears or bows and arrows.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The other piece is, I think that to use your analogy, it's almost like, you know, a hot stove situation too. You know, they kind of have to let us touch the stove. We did that, right? When we detonated all those weapons over the course of, 15 years. Now we know the stove is hot. Don't touch the stove.
I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you. I mean, how many more times do they have to slap our hands? I mean, let's just be blunt about it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, with a minute 50 to go here, I really do believe that, though, that we do have to pay attention to these situations. We could stand on a soapbox and go all over the threat narrative versus non-threat narrative. But I mean, these beings, whatever they were, created some scary times on a couple of different continents. And it's weird that they would choose Russia and the United States at that time, you know, in the 60s for the US, in the 80s for Russia, because there was a lot of tension back then.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of, the Cold War was in full force. Okay. And there was a lot of tension between the two. I mean, so it shows also a lot of intelligence that they were choosing the two most powerful nations in the world at that time, Josh.
It does. And I think it also probably indicates that they were able to reason what type of action on their part would get our attention, right? Because maybe they would take a different approach with Norway or Switzerland or France or England, but with the two, quote unquote, great powers of the world at that time, the US and Russia, that was the action they needed to take to really get our attention.
All right, my friend, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because when we return on Spaced Out Radio with the UFO report with the wizard Josh Rutledge, we're going to talk about Jacques Vallée. We're going to talk about the July 8th anniversary. Will the president announce that aliens are here? We're going to get into a lot more. Josh Rutledge, Mystic Journeys is his podcast. This is Spaced Out Radio, and we're having a great time with you tonight. Thank you for tuning us in. The final half hour is next.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Wizard.
All right.
Undead Jed, how you doing? Thomas Rock, how are you? Brutal. Oh, look at that. Brutal winter weather in Phnom Penh. Currently 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius. Well, let's see what's outside SOR Studios here. Well, right now it's a balmy minus 11 Celsius without the wind chill factor. Doesn't say it's snowing, but it is actually snowing outside. That's about 12 degrees Fahrenheit, Josh. How many pieces of clothing would you have on at 12 degrees Fahrenheit?
12 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, am I inside or outside?
Outside.
I'm outside. I probably have on long underwear, jeans, some thick woolly socks, probably my hiking boots so that the snow doesn't pile into my shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would probably have on a long underwear shirt, t-shirt over top of that, hoodie over top of that, jacket over top of that. Then probably like some of those earmuff things that like wrap around the backside of your head so my hair doesn't get messed up. That was my go-to on days when it was like that in Kentucky and I had to go to work.
If you can stay out of the wind, like if I were to walk outside right now and I could stay out of the wind chill, I'm going outside like I am. T-shirt, sweatpants, no socks, and my Crocs on. That's
but see, your body's conditioned for that weather.
It's because I'm fat.
It's like my body's conditioned for Phoenix weather. Because I'm sure if you came to Phoenix or even, Vegas during the heat of the summer, you'd melt. I think you would melt, Dave. All that would be left would be your beard and glasses floating in a puddle of water.
Well, at least I would lose some weight. So I'm okay with that. Oh, man. I was talking to Len Novin at our radio station in Apache Junction today. And we were talking about the weather. He's like, man, he goes, I don't know if I can handle the cold up there. I'm like, oh, you get used to it. You do.
Yeah, I mean, you're there. If you're anywhere for long enough, your body adjusts. So
it is supposed to get cold, though. Not too cold, but cold the next few nights. Up to minus 19 Celsius, which would be about 2 to 3 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, we've got a little cold front coming through here.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, a little cold front coming through my area.
Yeah.
The high Saturday is 64.
Holy cow. Oh. You will survive.
I'll be in a jacket, but
just let you know you will survive.
Yeah. I'm going out to the Beard of Knowledge's ranch. We're gonna have a little campfire and try to call in some UFOs and hopefully not freeze our butts off.
Oh yeah. You'll be fine. Guaranteed. All right. Thank you tonight to T-Bone, my man, Deanna, Blue Cruise, Benno for the super chats. And of course, we want to welcome our new member on our YouTube side, Joe Monica, for joining our membership. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Eva, nice to have you here. All right. I'm leaning towards El Cortez, Josh, for the Vegas weekend.
Okay.
It's at the end of Fremont Street.
Sure. Whatever
Leaning
GPS says.
Leaning towards it. I'll let you know soon. I just got to confirm with Merle.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know so I can get my room booked.
All right. Here we go, buddy. All right, we're into the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. If you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. On X, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's the wizard, Josh Rutledge, coming on in with the UFO report. And are we going to Jacques Vallée or are we going to July 8th of this year, Josh?
So I want to, let's do the July 8th, but I want to start it off with the financial crisis thing for the British bank, because I think it's related.
Go for it.
So for anybody who missed it, there was an individual named Helen McCaw, a former policy expert for the Bank of England, told the Times of London that politicians and bankers can't afford to dismiss alien life, and actually wrote to the governor of the Bank of England urging him to organize a contingency plan in case the White House confirms alien existence. So they want to be prepared because, basically she's concerned that it will cause a financial crisis if all of a sudden, the White House says, yep, aliens are real. And it could. I mean, that's been one of the concerns for many, many years. It used to be a religious concern, but I think it's now shifted to, what would it do to the markets of the world? Probably nothing. They would probably try to figure out a way to market it or use it to make more money. But
Agreed.
So then fast forward to, there's an individual on TikTok whose name is Mark Christopher Lee. And he's apparently like a film director kind of guy, producer. And he's based in the UK. And supposedly a insider in the Trump administration contacted him and said, hey, Trump has already written a speech that will reveal the "We Are Not Alone." And Trump has been given the go-ahead by the world leaders. But apparently Trump, is worried that China or Russia will jump the gun. And then a week later, the same insider called this guy back and said, oh, and by the way, it was supposed to be delivered in September last year, but it wasn't. And so now they're targeting July 8th, which is the 79th anniversary since the Roswell press release. And this is when Trump will make his speech. Now, I watched a video about this put out by Patrick and Vetted. Patrick made some excellent points, all of which I agree with. The main one being, if this insider is legitimate and they contacted this guy in the UK and gave this potentially classified information that Trump is going to make this speech about, we're not alone, then that person, that insider, would be found guilty of treason because they told a foreign national White House secrets.
But, okay, can I just jump in here for a second?
Sure.
They've already been doing that, though, if you were to believe, Chris Sharp from Liberation Times, as well as Ross Coulthart from News Nation.
True.
It seems like this UFO journalism circuit outside of George Knapp is going through the UK and Australia for Ross.
Yeah.
It's all
Yep.
foreign journalists, not anybody from the US.
The thing too that I don't understand is supposedly when Trump makes his speech July 8th of 2026, he's going to do it, like I said, in coordination with the anniversary of Roswell. And he's going to say in his speech, yep, Roswell happened. And we have, we collected the debris and the alien bodies and all this kind of stuff. Like we've talked about before, let's assume for a moment that this all happens. And that's what he says on July 8th. Man, does that open just a big hornet's nest of crap for the U.S. government. Because now you're going to have people coming out of every conspiracy corner in the world saying, well, hey, if this has been true for 80 years, what else have you lied to me about? All the moon landing was fake people are going to come out and they're going to demand to see the footage. And it's just going to create, regardless of whether or not any of that stuff is true, it's going to create a massive, security documentation FOIA headache for the government. So I just don't know. It just feels a little prediction. It's like, this guy Mark has the ability to fall back on and say, well, I'm not saying this insider is telling me, so if it doesn't happen, I shouldn't lose any credibility. But I don't know, it just feels really, it's kind of like the Chris Bledsoe prediction of the world's going to significantly change around Easter, and now it's now it's in the fall. It feels like, maybe this guy Mark is jumping on the prediction bandwagon. I don't know.
I would like to just say this about it. I don't personally believe that this is true. I don't think there's much truth to it at all. Okay, it just sounds way too far-fetched. Especially if something that big was breaking, they would try and get it out to a news source that's going to have an effect on the people.
Yep.
New York Times, Fox News, CNN, maybe even News Nation, whoever. It's not going to go through an independent person in the UK. Number two, I do want to say this. If it was going to be real, Trump Jr. has an absolute love of the Roswell story. He said it himself. He wants to know what happened at Roswell. He says he's asked Daddy. Everybody remembers the interview back in 2020 where he asked Dad, what happened at Roswell? And Donald basically dodged the question. Okay. But we know that if there was a date, that would be the perfect date for it to happen, because number one, the entire world's eyes are on North America due to the World Cup of Soccer. So there's going to be billions of people tuning into the USA and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number two, the love of Roswell. Why not? On the 79th anniversary, it would make sense that they chose that date. Because the one thing you Americans are, and I mean this very complimentary, is you are very keen on remembering your history. Like your history is important to you. And I love that about the United States. We don't have a lot of that in Canada unless it's regarding the Stanley Cup. Because Lord knows it's ancient history since a Canadian team last won the Stanley Cup. But I think that there is some sort of question on whether or not this could be true. Now, the Bank of UK, like you mentioned the Bank of UK there for a second, as I stated on the show a couple nights ago, where this makes a lot of sense with the preparing for panic. I remember talking to Lou Elizondo about the pandemic. Were they watching people closely? And he said, absolutely they were, because they were concerned about how people were treating people with the toilet paper, with ratting out your neighbors, for having your parents over for Christmas, for people, the mask versus no mask, all of it. People didn't treat people very well. And if there is aliens coming, that is a great cause for concern, because society, in my opinion, is going to go ballistic and hysterical for the most part, because people aren't ready. You and I are ready because we're in this field. The people who listen to this show are into it. They're ready. They're ready to say, I told you so. But for the other 330 million people in North America, between Canada and the US, they're blind to this subject, man. They may believe aliens are real, but they sure as heck are not going to know how to react when they show up.
Well, it's like, a lot of people may know that there exists in the world $1 million, but until they see it in front of them, they won't believe. And that's the truth of all of the phenomena. Until you have that experience, you may know that it's possible, but until you have that experience, that's when it switches that, flips that switch in your brain that says, oh, wait a minute, this is real. I think even, two things to add to that. I think that, number one, if it were to, let's say it's legitimate, I don't understand the reason why you would float it to somebody 7 or 6 months away from when it's supposed to happen.
Right.
It really, what it feels like is a test to see how long it'll take information like that to propagate through the UFO community. It's almost like a bandwidth test to see how long it's going to take us all to talk about this thing this Mark guy said. And then that'll give him an idea as to, maybe when it really does happen, how long it would take information to propagate through the community. Number two, somebody in chat said it, and I would agree. There's so much concern around what Trump says and how much of it is true versus, made up versus, parts of it are true and parts of it aren't, and various things that even if he were to make the announcement, I don't know that most people or half the people would take him seriously.
I think it would be dependent on how he does it. If he just says it in a statement where he's walking by the media and says, by the way, we've had this interest in UFOs and aliens, and we're going to confirm that Roswell happened. We're going to release some data on it, kind of like just a regular news story. That's like one thing. I could see your point on that. But if he goes in front of the podium, in front of the White House, where a lot of presidents have made some very, very critical speeches in their life and in their term, I think that's where the game changes. If we see my fellow Americans at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern, with the president walking up to the podium for a major announcement, that's where I see this getting real. Do I think that's going to happen? No, too much on the line.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with these predictions, Josh, we should tell our audience. They always have a scapegoat out. Anytime somebody makes a proclamation on a date that this is the date it's going to happen, whether it's this story about Trump announcing aliens or end of the world predictions or anything like that, what normally happens when those dates pass and nothing happens, like the Mayan calendar, They
Right.
always have an excuse that something happened that derailed him from going up to the podium and making that answer.
Well, like I said, this smart guy, you know, he basically has an exit strategy in the form of he didn't make the prediction. The White House admin insider told him this information. So, whether this insider exists or not, I don't know. But he still has that as an out. But you're right. There's always a get out of jail free card with any type of prediction like this.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I know we've only got a few minutes left, and I want to make sure we touch on the Jacques Vallée thing.
Go for it. You got 6 minutes.
Okay. So in a 6-minute statement that was made at the behest of James Fox, Jacques Vallée released some pretty amazing information. But one of the things that stood out to me, because he talked about a lot, is that he says that he helped design the data warehouse that was used by NIDS as a part of the ALSAT program that was, commissioned under Harry Reid and Chris Mellon, and was involved Robert Bigelow and all these things. And he goes on to say that within that data warehouse, it contained over 250,000 UFO reports and hundreds of accounts where bodies were obtained as a part of the report. And actually, he calls them creatures in his statement. I thought this was just really interesting because I knew Jacques Vallée was involved with the NIDS program. I didn't know to what capacity. And then B, that he called them creatures instead of extraterrestrials or aliens or any of the other number of words that he could have used. He chose creatures.
Jacques Vallée is just one of those power voices. When he speaks, we all kind of listen. Like, he's an OG granddaddy
Right.
of this field, man. And he doesn't act like many scientific people in this community who've been around for a long time. He doesn't act like he's lost his marbles regarding this subject.
Right.
So I think his research is solid. There are a lot of people within the UFO community who might disagree with that, who think he's another paid off shill about this subject. I mean, so I think the majority of us, though, can think pretty clearly that you don't study this subject for 60 years without taking any criticism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the nature of being of reaching, like, it's almost like a rite of passage. If you get to the point in the UFO community where people are talking bad about you on X, you've made it. I mean, like, you've made it. But yeah, I it's unfortunate that that's the case. We've talked about that before. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, I would agree that for the most part, though, he still really seems like he has his constitutions about him. That I mean, you could tell in this video that he had prepared a statement and he was reading from the statement just to make sure that I guess he covered everything he wanted to cover. But there's nothing wrong with being thorough, and it's probably a lot easier since English is not his first language. It's probably a lot easier to type something out and read it in English versus riff off the cuff and try to riff off the cuff in English. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't speak a second language, so that's just an assumption on my part. But I could see that potentially being the case. I just thought it was really, again, that 6-minute clip, it's on YouTube. If you go look it up, anybody who wants to see it, he does drop a lot of really cool and interesting information. The other thing I was wondering about is, since the ALSAT program is defunct now,
Yes.
I wonder if Bigelow, since he owned the data warehouse as a part of NIDS, if Bigelow could actually, quote unquote, disclose the content within the data warehouse as long as it protected any, PII or any of that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's a good question. I think Bigelow is still sitting on storage piles of information.
Oh, yeah.
And why he's gone so quiet on this is still, one of the greatest UFO mysteries. It really has. Because after he sold Skinwalker Ranch to Brandon Fugel, yes, he did his study on death that he paid out, I believe, $500,000.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Mishlove, I believe, won that. I believe it was Jeffrey Mishlove. Somebody like that. But he's gone silent again. He's gone absolutely silent. And I often wonder, when is he going to poke his head back out? He's almost like, what's that group? Puxatawny Phil?
Yeah.
Right? If Bigelow sees his shadow, we're into another 6 more years of not knowing what's going on. So I wish he was more open about this.
Yeah.
But I think those contracts on this subject are so deep, there's just no way he can.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, just because the program that it was a part of is defunct doesn't mean that the NDAs have expired or any of that kind of stuff. Speaking of NDAs, I'll just say really quickly, as a part of the James Fox press conference that was out a few days ago, our good friend Senator Burleson was there, and when he spoke, he echoed the need to pass the Disclosure Act and also to provide protections for whistleblowers. And he went on to say that he thinks that a lot of people misunderstand NDAs, and that it's not against the law to provide classified content to Congress.
That's the wizard, everybody, as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. The seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right. I got it. There was a question here from T-Bone. Meant to ask. Something to do about UFOs.
Yeah, it was the Greenland, whether or not maybe there's a UFO in Greenland,
Yeah.
and that's why Trump is interested in it. I mean, I did a quick search, and there's an incident called the Thule incident in 1968, where a B-52 bomber carrying 4 nuclear weapons caught fire and crashed into the sea ice near Thule Air Base. This is sometimes because there was intense secrecy in the nature of the crash. There's speculation that it was not a nuclear crash, but rather a UFO crash, and they just used this B-52 bomber situation as a cover story. That's my 30-second review. As far as it potentially being the reason why Trump wants Greenland, maybe. But it also just, he just may want Greenland because he's been talking about Greenland for years. Maybe, he's now taking an opportunity to try to get it. I don't know. So there have been also sightings of glowing orbs, glowing lights near the Thule Air Force Base in the 1950s that were reported by air crews. These reports described objects moving at high speeds around 1,000 knots without exhaust. So there's UFO activity, and then the B-52 crash. If the B-52 story is a cover story, then very possible it is a crashed UFO. Again, don't know if it would be enough of a draw for Trump to be like, hey, it's been whatever, 52, 25, whatever, 26, 73 years from now, 69 years, ago. Let's go get it now. Plus, more than likely, based on the U.S.'s kind of track record, if it was a crashed UFO, we probably already recovered it. I mean, that's the whole thing with the Virginia incident, is that the supposedly Brazilian military took it to an air base. They loaded it on an Air Force plane and they flew it back to the U.S. And when James Fox is a part of the new release for Moment of Contact, James Fox, they submitted a FOIA. They received a letter after, I think he said 3 years, they received a letter back from the CIA that said they can neither confirm nor deny. So,
Right.
Yeah, I just, like I said, if there was a UFO there, more than likely the U.S. already has it.
Exactly. Buddy, you got to get to bed.
Yep.
Oh, Dirty Filth is here. Look at this. A late night crash course in artistry with the Dirty one. Hello, Dirty.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Dirty. I feel so dirty when I say it like that.
You have
Well,
to.
you should have a shower before you go to bed then.
Yeah, I probably should. I'll sleep better.
Gorgeous
All right.
Kim Dillon, how's the flossing tonight? Please give us an update, if you don't mind. Josh, you get to bed, buddy. I know you're tired. By the way, I want to, as we say goodnight to Josh, I want to give a big shout out to my grandmother. Yes, I'm 52 years old and I still have a grandma. I'm a blessed man. My grandma turned 98 years old today. 98. And
Happy name day, Grandma.
yeah.
Yep.
Her town
Happy
in Alberta
birthday.
doesn't even exist anymore.
Is it Gun?
No, it's about a half an hour to an hour outside of Vegreville.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So where that is, I really don't know, but I always forget.
They have good sausage there.
They do. What the heck is going on here? Oh, this is driving me nuts here. Let's go back here. Copy. I think it started with a T. Why is this not working? Let's go that way. Okay, that worked. Okay, that worked. That worked. And that worked. All right, there we go. There we go. And I guess I got to cut up the show now.
Gruesome.
How's the dirty one? Why are you coming in so late now?
Well, I'm trying to get this comic that I've been working on done.
You're a comic. People look at you and they're like, you're a comic.
Apparently, my superpower is being able to go to random places and then make friends with people.
Right?
That's what the space captain told me.
Yeah, that's nice. It's very nice. Big fan of your niceness.
Well, it's a Canadian thing to do, Dave.
People
Sorry
look at
about
you.
being nice.
People look at you and they're like, that dirty filth.
He holds doors
nice.
open for old ladies.
This kind of guy who makes sure, like Shorzy says, you always smile at an elderly lady.
Well, I usually go have chicken wings after the show one Saturday with my pal Barb. She's the coolest old Polish lady I know in the entire world.
Yeah?
Yep. I'm going to tell her this Saturday. I'll be like, Barb, I was talking about you on the show. Now everybody knows that you're cool.
And what did Barb have to say?
The last time we hung out, we went
3 a.m. flossing.
3 a.m.
Gorgeous
flossing.
Kim Jellin, are you on the East Coast right now? That's the only way it could be 3 a.m.
Could be a time traveler, Dave.
She could be a time traveler.
3 a.m. is everywhere at once.
Yes. You know, it's.
I think that's how it works, right?
You know, you know what about Gorgeous Kim Jellin? She has the nicest teeth.
And she's gorgeous.
I've seen them. Her teeth are gorgeous. Every year she stops by for like 2 hours. She tells me she's going to get all, come hang out at UFO Con. And she shows up for 2 hours and then leaves. Like nothing ever happened. Like a little pixie fairy that she is. Just leaves.
And then she leaves just a sprinkling of pixie dust going behind her.
T-Bone, I have not seen the movie or the series yet. Not my cup of tea. No. Matt Geek, how are you? Oh, for goodness.
I only have 5 more pages to do the background with, Dave.
Nice. If you were playing bingo, Dirty Filth, what would be your lucky number?
13 all the time, no matter what. Is 13 a number in bingo?
Yes, it's under the B.
Oh, okay. Well, B13 all the time. Lucky 13s, Dave.
I remember I took my grandma and my mom to bingo one night. Oh, goodness. This is going back. What?
Your back's going to start hurt thinking about this
12
one.
years ago, 13 years ago. I'll tell you, them silver hairs in the bingo hall, you don't mess with those ladies. You don't make a peep, a noise. You don't even make eye contact. Otherwise, they will get you.
You will get hurt.
Yeah, they will literally beat this snot out of you.
That's why Dave got punched in the nose a couple times at bingo.
That's where most of my broken noses happen.
He tries to play it off like he was playing hockey and got in a bunch of hockey fights. But
It was all
bingo.
It was the silver hairs getting pissed off at me at bingo. Them ladies take that stuff seriously.
Way back in the early 90s, my grandma won the Bonanza Bingo at Caesar's Palace at West Edmonton Mall. The
See, look at this.
Starlight
Look at
Bingo,
Undead
whatever.
Jed. Bingo, I only went once, but I won a couple of $100. The old ladies were hostile.
He's lucky
Yeah.
he made it out there without a crushed pelvis.
Jules says they'll bite you and leave their teeth in your flesh. That's because they all have dentures. So their teeth have no choice but to go with your arm.
People just flock into the bingo at Castle Downs Bingo on a Saturday evening. The old Meadowlark Hall. Those are Edmonton references if you're old enough to remember them, anybody that's from Edmonton.
Look at Vampire. Sometimes I win bingo. I definitely get silver side-eye. Yeah, you're lucky you walk out of that door alive. You would have a safer chance to walk through a gang-filled street somewhere in Los Angeles than you would getting out alive after winning bingo in front of the silver hairs. They are dangerous. What's your chicken wing of choice there, Dirty Filth?
Well, I like a good dorsal fin or a Leroy Bouchlet, but definitely I get a special place that I go to, and the guy makes me super hot wings, but hot sauce is my favorite.
Do you go hot or like Frank's hot?
Dave, the guy makes a special hot sauce for myself and the Mexican dude that shows up there.
Yeah.
It gets you sweaty and your nose runs. And
do you want to have a wing off in Vegas?
Yeah. I like chicken wings. I'm not going to be able to outbeat you, eat 75 chicken wings, but I'll eat some pretty spicy stuff.
You know what? There was one restaurant here that used to do a weekly wings challenge on their hot wings. I think their record was like 6 or 7, and I did 21.
Okay, well, I don't think I could eat 21 just then.
I was in a good spirit back then, man. I was like, I'm going to crush this record. I said, I want my name on the walls, and I want people to remember me by this.
Is your name on the wall? Did you get a t-shirt?
No, they didn't have t-shirts. You just got the name bragging rights of this one. I live in the Caribou, man. People can't afford t-shirts around here. If it's not camouflage, it doesn't work.
I was about to say, is it a camo t-shirt?
Probably.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that, Dave. I apologize. Living way up there in the top of the mountain, looking down at the rest of the world. Look at you peons from my mountain perch.
It's a dangerous time, my friend. Excuse me.
I've only had chicken wings once where I had to sign a waiver of some sort.
I've had to sign a couple of waivers.
And it turned out they just threw a bunch of extracts together, and it wasn't like the guy didn't make his actually own hot sauce. So I was kind of sad about that.
Yeah.
Because if the guy can make a hot sauce and, make your nose runny and you start crying a little bit and double check to make sure you wash your hands, that's respectable. But if you just throw in extracts together, you're just McDonald's-ing your hot sauce, if that's a word.
It
is now.
You know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning? Just because I can. I'm going to go to get a McDonald's breakfast with breakfast burritos.
Do they got a Taco Bell up there yet, Dave?
No.
There's no more in Edmonton either. There used to be one at Meadowlark, and I went there.
It is the greatest sin in Canadian life that Taco Times and Taco Bells are disappearing.
I know 2 Taco Times, one in West Edmonton Mall and one at Meadowlark Mall or whatever it was. Or Anyway, it's not important. I can't remember where the other one is, but anyways, there's definitely one in West Edmonton Mall. That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
They get all these other weird.
McDonald's breakfast burritos are the best. They really are. Dry Toast, the best name on YouTube. There he is. Tip your cap, Dry Toast. Tip your cap. I bet you Dry Toast is one of those people who sleeps with like an eye covering. You know, one of them, like not a bandana, but those not eye patches.
Because he works.
Those
he
eye
works
coverings that you can find. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think he's got any kind of like maybe they can make a spaced out radio one for him? Eye coverings.
Guaranteed he has pajama bottoms with like dice on them. Or tires.
I think probably dice. But you
Gorgeous
know
Kim Jellin wears the satin pajamas, she just admitted.
I was about to say you can't really dig on anyone on their jammy jam flavors because everyone has their type of jammy jams they like to wear.
I rip my pajama bottoms, my favorite ones.
So there's just big holes in the knees trying to tackle the boy while you're playing floor hockey?
No, I got right below the pocket on the left side. I got it caught on something, and then every time like you get up from a chair or something like that, it would rip even more.
Oh,
that pissed me off.
I gotta shake my fist at that. Oh, I hate when that happens. I have a work shirt that it happens to me. It's a fancy Bushnell shirt, and they have like little like air venties on the side of them. It's really nice, but it gets caught when I'm walking by some of the carts at work and everything. And then every once in a while, they just hear me swearing. Good God Almighty, what happened? To Dirty Filth over there. He's swearing to the back of the warehouse.
The old dirty one.
Yes. If anybody wants to buy like 37 kayaks, let me know.
I'm surprised, considering where you work, that you don't wear more camouflage.
Dave, I spent like 40 years acquiring dark clothing. I got to use all of it up. It's very important. Got to make sure my mom knows it wasn't a phase, right?
Right. I get you. I get you.
That's why when I started doing the show on Saturdays, I went, well, you know what? I'll just put the old black nail polish back on because, you know, Dirty Phil, he's got to be the
you are dirty.
Right? So, you know, and then my mom never even noticed it for months and months. And I was Swindling. I'm like, look at it, it's not a phase. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I got black nail polish on. She's like, I didn't even notice. I'm like, great. My mom's the best. But anyway, it's not important. Just rambling away here, Dave. Slathering his page with.
Me too. Look at me ramble. Ramble.
He's just a rambling guy.
I'm a rambling guy. That's the way I do it, man.
So if anybody's new to the show and they haven't heard, on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is 2 p.m. Pacific, and well, I think it's about like 9:30 in the future, 3 days later on the East Coast, I sit around and draw cartoons and I chat with people in the audience, and sometimes I even give away some of the cartoons. So if you're interested in watching me draw some more cartoons, or if you'd like more spaced out radio-ness, I'm around on Saturdays, 3 p.m. Mountain Standard. Sorry, Dave, got to plug my stuff here while I'm doing this.
You go. You are just
not sure if that's against the rules or whatever, but
we'll let that one slide with you, buddy.
Okay.
We'll let that one slide. You're okay. You know. Are you gonna get tattooed with me in Vegas, Dirty Filth?
Can't do it, Dave. Sorry. Well, no, I can't.
Not even a little one?
I don't know, maybe. I am susceptible to peer pressure.
Why don't we get little Carls made up?
What I'd like to do
Like
is
your drawing of Carl.
What's he doing though? Carl's got to be doing something. He's usually out of control.
I know.
Do I have a? No, I don't have a Carl, but I have a Fabrice. Look at Dave. It's Fabrice. And he's got his summertime shorts on. He's ready for summer, Dave. It's coming.
I love it. I love the fact that all of her stuff is like one of a kind.
Yeah. Fox only she's made a couple interesting things, and she's had people ask to get her like a double of it. She's like, nope, can't do it. If you want something similar, I can think about it. You can work on it. But yeah, definitely. Everything is one of a kind. I mean, Oliver, she's got like 100+ Zom bunnies that she's done, and they're all different. I got the best one, which is Callaway, and it's got the dead man symbol on the back. And of course, his eyes are rolling back like the Undertaker and everything.
Must be nice to have pull.
Well, last weekend it was terrible because she was out collecting Zom bunnies from the wild, and I had to deal with the cats all by myself. And I basically just bring her over to deal with the cats because usually they're out of control. I'm trying to get her to come to Vegas, Dave.
You should.
Because that's an extra suitcase full of junk I can bring down.
Absolutely. I don't know how many people are going to be there. Now, we're not doing a radio show, right?
Well, that's all right. There's a lot of weirdos in Vegas.
Yeah. That there are.
I'm fairly certain there might be some conventions around that time. Ooze my way into it of some sort. That'd be nice. If you get bored, Dave, you could go down to the art walk this year in Edmonton.
That would actually be fun.
Last year we.
All right, everybody. Tomorrow night on the show, Dirty Filth has booked us Brett Harp. She is a paranormal healer. She gets into some good stuff. Really good stuff. She's known as the Haunted Therapist. The Haunted Therapist. And we're also going to start bets on whether or not gorgeous Kim Jellin will hang out with me for dinner at UFO Con this year in San Francisco. The over-under right now is about -1.5 that she will not, which means that there's a 1.5% chance that she probably won't. She'll have an excuse. She's got to paint her nails, floss her teeth, whatever it may be. That's the way it is. Thank you tonight. Thank you tonight to Benno, Blue Cruz, Deanna, and T-Bone for the great super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. I do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to Joe Monica for joining our YouTube membership. Dirty Phil, need a favor from you. I need you to say, good night, Dirty.
Good night, Dave.
Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.